too late for me, is it? It's not too late. Diane, I need you to tell me that it's not too late.
Bojack,
I need you to tell me that I'm a good person. I know that I can be selfish and narcissistic and self-destructive, but underneath all that, deep down, I'm a good person, and I need you to tell me that I'm good. Diane? Tell me, please, Diane, tell me that I'm good.
Hola amigos y amigas de este canal.
Buenas, ¿cómo les va? Pues todo bien aquí. Regresamos con la programación habitual aquí en el Screen to Play. Y bueno, como podrán ver, hoy nos encontramos aquí para presenciar lo que es el lanzamiento de la misión Artemis I con el cohetillo SLS. Bueno, así que disfrutemos de este maravilloso paisaje, por así decirlo. Nos encontramos viendo ahorita en la parte superior del cohete. Estamos a solo 1 hora y media de lanzamiento, lo cual es algo buenazo. Y ya todo el personal que se encontraba realizando ya los últimos detalles, por así decirlo, viendo que todo esté perfecto, ya se retiró de la plataforma de lanzamiento. Bueno, esto se está realizando desde la plataforma, bueno, la histórica plataforma de lanzamiento de Kennedy Space Center en Florida. Así que bueno, vamos con unos datillos antes de seguir viendo esto. Ok. Bueno, el SLS utiliza tecnología similar a la del transbordador. Esto lo podemos ver en los motores de combustible sólido que se encuentran alrededor, bueno, a los lados del cohete, al igual que en los motores que tiene el cohete principal. En este momento podemos ver todos los motores. Aquí están los del centro, los motores que se utilizaron en el transbordador espacial. Bueno, solo es el modelo, incluso son motores mejorados. Y acá a los lados están los propulsores de combustible sólido, similares a los que se usaron igual en el transbordador espacial. Bueno, el SLS es el único cohete capaz de llevar a la cápsula Orion, además de también poder llevar carga adicional. Y bueno, la misión de este lanzamiento es simplemente un vuelo de prueba y para realizar ciertos experimentos, por así decirlo, alrededor de la luna, ya que estamos está en el cohete, en la cápsula de, ¿cómo podría decirse? Bueno, en la cápsula de carga, por así decirlo, se encuentran unos satélites, mismos que servirán para estudiar la superficie de la luna en busca de hielo o agua, lo cual nos permitirá ver si qué tan sostenible puede ser mantener una colonia humana ahí. Proyecto que está pensado para que se empiece en 2025 con la misión Artemis IV, si no estoy mal. Y bueno, esta misión tendrá una duración de aproximadamente 42 días, en los cuales se cubrirá una distancia de 2.1 millones de kilómetros. Así que bueno, ¿será que lo lograremos? Bueno, ¿será que la NASA lo logrará? No sé si ustedes sepan, pero este ya es el tercer intento en el que se intenta lanzar el cohete. Los dos primeros fueron por fallas técnicas, uno fue por la plataforma, bueno, el otro fue por cuestiones climatológicas. En este momento se están arriesgando bastante debido a que recientemente pasó un huracán y bueno, con eso también trajo consigo lo que es la tormenta tropical. Esperemos que el cohete esté bien y no lo cancelen a último momento, así que
need to reestablish the replenish bill, but they may want to increase the flow rate back into the hydrogen tank for a little while, and so we'll have to see. But yeah, they'll get the tank full again faster than they'll finish with the engine bleed. So that actually might be that might actually be a question that we could ask ask an engine guy if we get a chance to ask an engine guy. I know that the folks out there have access to some of the experts at the press site, so maybe we can throw a question to
hablando
somebody like
sobre
that
el
about how long
personal
it
que hace unos minutos se encontraba cerca de la plataforma de lanzamiento, revisando que todos los sistemas se encuentren en
We'll just have
estado
to see
perfecto, por así
what
decirlo.
what NASA says.
Yeah, we'll just stand by and wait to see what the word is. Kevin Cohagen is asking, where is the wedding ring and why is there one? That is a SRB thing, right? Wedding
You
ring?
know what? I think that's that one. I forget what that is. That's probably a better question for Chris G. I think doesn't Chris G know that one, or
All right, hey, this is Thomas Burkhardt just checking in because I know the wedding ring answer.
There you go. Hey,
wedding-
Thomas.
Hey, it's the black stripe on the top of the left
Oh,
SRB.
okay.
It helps them differentiate which one is which.
Okay.
Huh.
I forgot about that. Yes, you can see it on the right side here, but we're looking at
Yeah.
the back of the vehicle, so the left SRB is on the right and the right SRB is on the left.
All right, back to Jack.
Yeah.
We
They
also
used to have
nothing.
even more markings on the nose cones of the boosters. A little bit more complicated crisscrossing markings. I think the wedding band has been there for a long time though.
Bueno,
Let's see
aquí
here.
nos están comentando,
Still
bueno,
waiting on more
realizaron una
updates from
pregunta
NASA.
en el
We have one.
chat allá del
Oh,
canal
go.
principal de la NASA.
They
de
can
NASA
resume
Space
the
Flight.
engine bleed and
Bueno,
only use
hablaban
45
sobre
minutes instead of
el
90
tiempo,
minutes to meet the
cosa que yo
temperature
comenté,
criteria. So there is some
eh,
time savings there
de qué
compared
pasó
to
con
the
lo del
first time
clima, la
they
tormenta
they
tropical.
were in
Bueno,
the flow.
como acaban de mencionar,
Right,
en
because
los
they did. I
conos
mean,
de
they
los
did get
propulsores
get some amount
combustible sólido,
of engine bleed, and
los que
the
están ahí
hardware
a los
won't
lados
just
del cohete
immediately
principal,
warm all the way straight back
ya,
up to where it was before they
sufrieron
started. So
ciertos daños que
the
parece
engines
que no van a
they can
afectar
see,
de forma
they can
negativa
calculate based
a
on the
lo que es
temperature
el
sensors they
lanzamiento.
have that okay,
Al
we
menos
need to get,
eso
this
esperemos,
is about how
eso
much time we need
esperan
to do,
todos.
and they're just estimating, but they'll look at the sensors to see, to see when they feel like they've had enough of the thermal conditioning, and so now we'll just have to see, is 45 minutes enough if they've got the rest, if they've got the rest of the vehicle configuration ready to pick up the count when we get down to 10 minutes. So I think that's going to kind of be the question going into that hold at T-minus 10 minutes is, can they make the opening of the window, and if not, how much, what's the soonest that they could get a T0. So if it's only 45 minutes, we're still looking, we're only a little bit under, we still have almost 2 hours until the beginning of the launch window. So maybe there's still enough time to do that and get close to the opening of the window.
Hopefully, that's what we will see. JLab, thank you for the support. Space Pope, there's a Futurama reference if you're playing bingo. Says, bless this launch. Taco Bell, thank you. Taco Bell's 5-layer burrito, thank you for the support. I don't know if we're going to get live views from onboard SLS. That would be really sweet if we do.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope
they
so
do
as
have,
well.
they do have, I believe they have the capability to switch between two cameras. Obviously we can only see one of them at a time, but yeah, I think we are hoping that we're going to see some live video, and just like any of the other rocket launches, if there's a little bit, I know you guys who have cameras aren't going to be happy if there's some upper level overcast, but obviously if those might end up being the best cameras we have of things like SRBSAT, for instance.
Got it. John Mueller, thanks for the support. They participated in NCAS 2022. Excited for the launch. Excited for my next NASA experience whenever it happens. Let's do this. Cool deal. Thanks for the support, John. Connor, thanks for the support. They say, what engineering challenge was most difficult to overcome during the development of this rocket? They are an aerospace student at UCF. I don't know if we know definitively, but Philip, I mean, maybe you could speak to some of the engineering challenges they had to sort of overcome here. At least they didn't have to side mount an entire space shuttle orbiter, right?
Right. I mean, it's, you know, I think that the issues that they've had with getting this vehicle ready to fly were not so much, you know, design of the flight vehicle as much as, you know, they had issues with, you know, with welding the core stage. They were doing some introduced some a new style of friction stir welding that they hadn't done at that scale before. So it's things like that, you know, welding techniques, and then, you know, I think I would probably classify things like industrial engineering. So they spent a lot of time, a lot longer time than they thought they would need to, you know, basically just getting all of the equipment into the engine section of the core stage. It took them a lot longer to sort of figure that process out, and that doesn't sound like something that you work on in KSP. It's, you know, it's things like that's taken longer. And so again, with this, you know, with this vehicle, it took them longer. Because it's a big and it's a very complicated vehicle. It's just taken them a long time to kind of get the procedures down and repeatable for, you know, everything from, you know, stacking the boosters, stacking the core stage, doing all the testing and checkout.
Okay,
And some of
ahorita ya
that,
está
those aren't the
comentando
kinds of things you think of when you're in
sobre
Kerbal, for
la
instance.
tecnología de
It's
transbordador espacial que
you're
llegó
usually
a
starting off
utilizarse
probably, I
dentro
don't know how many
del
seconds
SLS,
before you actually lift
en
off.
español sería
But it's
Sistema de
basically
Lanzamiento Espacial.
figuring out how to
Y
you know, how to, you know, basically test and check out
habla
of a
sobre
rocket
las
for the
diferentes
first time.
pruebas que tuvo que
And,
pasar
you know, a lot of the issues that
SLS
they've
para
had this
poder
year,
estar aquí ya
you could
listo
kind
para
of
su
classify
lanzamiento,
more as test and
como
check out
los
than, you
las
know,
pruebas
optimizing
criogénicas, la
optimizing
resistencia
mass
de
to
presión
orbit or payload
estructural.
fractions and things like that. So
Porque
it's
también
not,
habló
it probably not
de,
would
bueno,
not
que
consider
fue
it to be sort of the
demoroso
typical
el
types
hecho
of design challenges that you would
de
think
que
of.
tengan
It's
que
more of,
armar
you know,
todo ese cohete,
you know, welding
digo,
techniques,
por
industrial
las
engineering,
mejoras que se
those types
tuvieron
of
que
things for this
realizar
vehicle.
a ciertas
You know, and you
piezas.
compare that to, you know, compare that to Starship, where you're thinking of things like, you know, a very high performance, you know, these new engines that they're doing, the type of, you know, making Starship reusable, you know, the re-entry systems that they're working on. It's a different type of flight profile than Space Shuttle, for instance. And some of those things are the types of things you might think of more as rocket science or rocket engineering, but they're all important. It's just they're just different areas of the job.
Yeah, that makes sense. It sure would be cool if we had some new friends and maybe another cool thing about to come up here.
A cool thing?
Yeah, we might have a cool thing about to come up here, so everybody stay tuned for a cool thing. Another cool thing, I should say. Shadowgunner66, thanks for the support. James Juries again, thanks for the support. Will we stay live till Orion separation or go live again for TLI? I'm not quite sure what the plan is there, James. So the thing is with YouTube, once you go over 12 hours, the stream starts to eat itself, and when you go back and watch it afterwards, it would cut off the beginning. So after 12 hours, we kind of have to, or when we approach 12 hours, we kind of have to, wrap things up if we want it all to be preserved for eternity. Let's see here. Robert Rank, thanks for becoming a PadRat member. And A-Train, thank you so much for the support. They say, which Star Trek chief engineer from the USS Enterprise would you trust most to get this bird fixed into space? Thanks for the coverage. Cheers from Dallas. I'm gonna go with Jordy. Jordy was a chief engineer, right? Oh man, I'm showing my lack of Star Trek knowledge. This will be the Chris G question for sure. We need to ask this again when when Christy is back on. Oh, we have an update. Interesting. The range is a no-go. What is the violation? Let's see here. Stand
Please,
by.
not a cruise ship.
No, the range has an asset down for the launch. Sounds like some piece of equipment.
And so
has
the question is whether they can reboot it before the launch window ends.
Wow. Okay.
Is it like hard down and they're not going to be able to bring it back up tonight or not? That'll be.
Radar site has a loss of signal. So, well,
I don't like
I
this.
guess we're going to find out. We'll have to find out whether they can. Yeah.
while we wait to hear more about what's going on with the range, they are working the issue, and the test conductor will be asked to be updated frequently about it. So
Okay. Also, we still have a bit of time. We still have, best part of 4 hours to deal with that.
And flow has resumed into the booster and upper gauge. So it's on the liquid hydrogen tank. So hopefully we'll get some information from that shortly and figure out what's going on with the leaky valve from earlier. Oh, sorry. I just sneezed. I hope I was able to mitigate that, and I didn't just blow everybody's ears out.
We didn't notice.
Okay, well, I shouldn't have said anything. My bad. Let's see here. Kyle Taylor says, "Let's go." Thanks for the support, buddy. And Grand Chester says, "West coast of Florida here. Got some clouds, but if it's clear, will we see the launch from here?" Absolutely. Lewis R, thanks for the support. They say, "Why am I up at 4:20 in the UK? Thanks for everything you do, guys. Great seeing Doug." And we might have another Doug here, a different Doug 2.0, just shortly to talk to us about some RS-25 engine goodness. So stand by for that. We are getting ready to throw to another special guest. So there, I announced the thing. Well, that's kind of a cool shot of the bleachers over by the press site.
Yeah, I like
the
that.
VIP workers and whatnot, I believe.
Is that where that is?
Yeah, I think so. I see a set of bleachers. I don't see the orange lights though, so I could be wrong. But I think that's where that was.
Orange light's good.
Orange is best light. Brian Jacobs, thanks for the support. They say, "What will thrust be at max Q?" Thanks for awesome coverage. This is an interesting question because we did talk about the fact that Philip, you were saying that the solid boosters sort of the maximum amount of thrust they produce is 20-something seconds into flight. I imagine the grain pattern as they get to max Q, the grain pattern enables them to sort of have a reduced thrust for that period of time. Is that the case?
Yes. Yeah, I think the issue is I'm not sure they've given us the numbers. We do have a thrust versus time curve for these, but they don't actually label the axes, and so that might get into export control, my not favorite phrase in the world, and so I don't know if we have that answered specifically.
Hashtag ITAR.
Right.
There's another bingo square for it.
Right. Yeah.
Boo,
So
ITAR.
but the booster, the thrust will come down a little bit, and then obviously not obviously, but the on this vehicle, just like with shuttle, the RS-25 engines will throttle back for a handful of seconds. Let me see if I can pull that up quickly, because the RS-25s actually throttle down, throttle up and down a little more than they did in shuttle. So go ahead. Let me see if I can grab that. Let me see if I can pull those numbers here.
Yeah. Do you think I will continue to vamp here in the background? Let's see.
Okay, here we. Oh, of course it doesn't
go ahead.
say. No, it doesn't say. That's interesting. So this is in the press kit that we were given. It just says that they are throttled down. Maybe it doesn't say where they were throttled down to. So I'll have to see if if they gave that to us in the notes, in some old notes or not.
Okay.
Nope, they don't. So, but they will. The engines will throttle back. They'll throttle back at about 55 seconds after liftoff, and then they'll throttle back up at about 81 seconds. They'll throttle back up to 109%. But it's kind of the same thing. They won't give us the booster thrust at max Q, and they won't give us the engine throttle setting, which then we could work the thrust out for at max Q either. So unfortunately, we don't have the exact numbers for that.
Got it. Jack is asking, the countdown clock indicates earlier than 1 a.m. Does this mean that the clock will stop at a certain time until the launch window opens? Greatly appreciate y'all the coverage. Keep it up. If I'm not mistaken, right now the countdown clock is 30 minutes ahead of the actual count, and that is because there is a 30-minute hold. Is that correct?
Yes, but now that we don't know for sure if they're going to be able to go at the opening of the window, what's going to happen is the clock will count down to 10 minutes and it will hold, and then whenever it picks up, will be 10 minutes from launch. If it was going to be on schedule, the opening of the window was at 1:06 a.m. Eastern, so we would pick up at 12:56 a.m. Eastern. That would be 5:56 a.m. UTC. But if they do not make the exact opening of the window, what we'll see with the clock is, and it's kind of one of the reasons why you get into an issue with an L- clock, is the L- clock only works if you know what the liftoff time is. So what we'll be doing here is, the clock will go down to 10 minutes, they'll hold, and we will be waiting to hear what time are they going to pick up the clock. Will they pick it up on time at 12:56 a.m. Eastern, or will they pick it up sometime after that? So, we'll basically be listening to the launch team and the commentators at some point in there. Now we're not so sure. We were told we would get the launch team audio at L-15, but now that's kind of thrown into a little bit of uncertainty exactly what that means. So we'll have to see if they just, when they give us launch team audio, we can hear, because Charlie Blackwell Thompson will be the person that releases, gives the launch team the go to release the hold. So we will hear it from her, hopefully.
Got it. Okay, so we do have an update really quickly before we throw to our special guest. The update is that we are back on replenish on the core stage with the hydrogen tank, and they are working on the upper stage, getting it back into a flow. They'll be resuming a flow of liquid hydrogen on the ICPS shortly, but the core stage is back on hydrogen replenish. So with that, we will wait for more updates from the officials there at NASA. But in the meantime, it would be sure nice if we had some new friends again.
Jack, you think we might be able to work that out here?
Oh, new friends again. What's up, Doss?
Hey, I am back, and we are going to do a little bit of a special guest once again. So if you bear with me here, we have someone from Aerojet Rocketdyne here to talk to us about RS-25 engines. Got a couple of those on SLS. It's Doug Bradley. So what we're going to do is go ahead and check in with Chris Gebhardt once again out in the field. And Chris, how are things going out there?
And Doug, thank you so much for being here and doing this with us to talk about the RS-25 engines. And
it's a pleasure.
The first thing I want to ask you actually is the history of your involvement with the program, because you've been with these engines since before they actually lifted anything off the ground, right?
A long time. I started out as a young designer in 1977 working on turbo machinery, which was fantastic. So that was a few years before we launched. So we were deep into development testing and single engine testing, test stands. And so by that time, a lot of the design was done. So I was working redesigns. We'd have a problem and I was working redesigns to try to fix those problems. And so went into development, got into actually testing the engines. You know what? I've had a long career. You bounce around in a lot of different places. So I had the pleasure of being the chief engineer for the last 7 launches of the shuttle program. So that That was very gratifying.
Ok, en
Just,
estos momentos
my
nos
predecessor says it's the
encontramos
best job of
con
the
el
company if it doesn't kill
director
you.
de
So it
misión,
didn't kill me, and
el
this
cual
turned out to be
se ha
fantastic.
estado
And some of
con
those
el
same
director
engines are
de
sitting
la
on this vehicle,
Yes,
are they
they
not?
misión
are.
desde
Yes, they
el
are.
inicio.
Our kids,
Él
our
estuvo
baby
personalmente ahí
So let's talk
en
about what
todas
you
las
had to do
pruebas
to the kids to get them ready
de
for their new
de
job,
rendimiento
because
de
we hear a lot about the heritage hardware from the shuttle program, and we all I always still call them the SSMEs instead of the RS-25s, which I'm sure you will do during this as well. But I think there's a perception out there that nothing within them changed in order to be used for SLS. But what did you alter? Because they did have to be tweaked.
They did have to be tweaked. I mean, you can imagine we're not just going to pull them off a space shuttle and put them on a brand new rocket. So there was some things that changed. The rocket itself is taller. What that means is the pressures of the propellant coming into our engine are higher. Just like you go deep in the ocean, the pressures get higher. Same idea. That really changes the way you have to start the engine. The way the valves are all conditioned and orchestrated together to start the engine. So that was a small development program. We had to work that out. These engines are going to run at 109% power level. In the shuttle program, they ran at 104.5 at the end. So we were certified. We knew we were certified, but we had to kind of cull through all the engines to make sure that all of those engines were going to be good for 109. And a certain amount of
también está
And
hablando de las
109 was
mejoras
the
que
abort
tuvieron todos
contingencies,
los
right, for the
motores
shuttle program?
Right. That was the
que son
FPL, full power level.
que
we
llegan
called
a
it.
ser
In the case of
más
an abort,
de
if you needed a little bit
17%,
extra
bueno,
power,
17% mayor
they were there
eficientes
to do that.
que
So those were
antes
some of the internal changes, I'll
utilizaban
call them.
en
The
el
external
transbordador
changes were
espacial.
different. In the shuttle program, our nozzles, the part of our engine you really see on launch day, they were about 20 or 30 feet away from the solid rocket boosters, the big boosters on either side. Those things get really hot. The plume's really hot. Now we're literally 4 feet away. And
Quite a difference.
Quite a difference. And so we had to add protection, ablative and insulation and things like that. And then there were a million other just small changes, because it's very different.
También está
We
hablando
did make
de la
one
altura en la que se encuentran los
a design
motores.
change.
Lo
The
que es a nivel
controller,
del
which is the
piso.
computer that
En
controls
este
the engine
momento
throughout flight and
motores se
talks to the
encuentran
rocket
más
and says
abajo
when to
a
throttle up and
comparación de
throttle down.
cómo era
That was
cuando
1990s,
todavía
early
estaba activo
2000s
lo que era
technology. That's a
el
computer
programa
from the
del
1990s.
transbordador espacial.
We can do better, right?
Yeah, those were not even going to be able to talk to the new rocket. So we had a decision to make. Do you make, I'll call them translation boxes, so the old box could talk to the new vehicle, or just make a new box? Because once you run out of them, you got to make a new one anyway. So that was the major change, and that turned out to be very successful. That was difficult starting out, but as it turned out, we green ran all of them on hot fire testing. We were 17 for 17. They all worked well. So that was what went into adapting those engines to the new rocket.
And then sort of like when the engines were being developed for the first time in the 70s for the shuttle program, those were the tests that we saw at Stennis, right? As you were working through the redesigns for SLS and firing them on the stands.
Right.
That's what you're referring to, right? To prove it out.
Exactly. That startup, we had about a three test program to make sure we got the startup right. You kind of sneak up to it with a little higher pressures,
Están
little higher
hablando
pressures.
sobre cómo fue el proceso de prueba de las piezas y del cohete en general. Fueron 3 programas de pruebas en los que se analizó cada pieza en diferentes situaciones. Bueno, en cómo se comportaría en diferentes
in liquid rocket engines. We put them in a test stand. We can test them in very flight-like conditions. Some of the other folks can't do that. If you're building the rocket itself, you're doing wind tunnel tests and analysis, but your first real test is a flight. But we know those engines really well because we've tested them. We've got 1 million seconds of test time on the ground on those engines, and we've got the luxury of being able to do that.
De la confianza que se le tiene a estos motores.
One of the things that I kind of love is we always think of these engines as new, right? Because they were at the end of the program engines. I think the oldest one was like from John Glenn's flight in the late 90s.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that all the hardware on them is new. And there's some stuff from STS-1 on every single one of these engines, is there not?
Yeah, there's about 3 or 4 parts at least on each one of the engines from STS-1, which I think is really cool. I call them more simple parts. They're lines. There's some valves and valve bodies. There's some igniters, but it's real hardware. It's not just nuts and bolts and washers that have made it throughout the program. In the shuttle program, we were constantly changing hardware. That's just the way the shuttle program worked. And so now we end up with 16 engines, and we have some STS-1 hardware. So I think that's cool.
Nice. And you said 16 engines. One of them, if I'm remembering correctly, was not assembled at the end of the shuttle program, and one never flew.
Right. That's exactly right. We had 14 kind of flight-tested engines. One we had tested, but it had never flown. And then one, we just had the parts and we could put it together. At the end of the shuttle program, I mean, we were still moving forward, and we were still building hardware. And so we knew we had, the budgets were there to build hardware. So instead of just stop the program, we decided, no, we'll continue and try to give NASA almost more than they asked for what we were spending. And we were able to make all the hardware for that last engine. And then to get ready for this program, we were able to get that hardware to the Stennis Space Center where we assemble our engines and then get it green room, get it tested.
Nice, and we saw those engines fire up on the core stage twice at Stennis. It was amazing, and I can't wait to see them ignite tonight either and hear that sound again. But there's a big difference with these now, right? Aside from their power level and everything else, you don't get them back.
Yeah.
So was there anything, because in the shuttle program you got them back, so you could disassemble them, you could look at them, and you've got all that data from 40 years. But was there anything else you had to do to get all of the information from the engines that maybe you would plug the engine into something when it came back on Atlantis and get that data, but now you need it to transmit to ground? Is there anything like that, or do they basically function the same way in that regard?
That's a great question. We were asked that. What do you lose now that they're not reusable? What do you lose now that they don't come back? For this particular engine, these particular engines, since we've got so much test time on them and so much experience, now when we look at the data, we don't have to look at the hardware anymore, because we've got so many years of correlation. We look at the data, we see how they tested, how they flew, then we disassemble things and look and see, well, what does that mean? When the temperatures get up this high, what does that mean to the particular component? And so we've got all that track record behind us. And so in the end, we found out that, well, it is great to get them back and to look, but we don't need that for these engines now.
Gotcha. So once the 16 are gone, you got to make more. So, and I think those are going to be called the RS-25. Oh, it pains me to say that. The RS-25Es, right?
Yeah, that's kind of gone out of disfavor.
Okay.
I'm not sure we're going to rename them. It'll probably just be RS-25. So it'll be different.
Okay.
We tend to think in terms of part numbers. It's all numbers.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we have to make new ones. I mean, in the shuttle days, it was all about reliability. Everything was reliability. First of all, for the safety of the astronauts. But it was also cost effective. The more reliable they were,
es algo
typically the
cuestionable,
longer they would
pero
last.
considerando la experiencia que ya
Build an engine,
tienen
but use it. One of those has flown 12
y que ya
times.
han
So the
realizado
cost is
varias
about
pruebas con
1/12
estos
of the
motores y
original
más
cost
aún
of
cuando
refurbishment.
estos motores fueron los que
Now
estuvieron,
we need to make them
bueno, no
less
estuvieron,
expensive.
este modelo de motor
And so
se
we need to make
utilizó
them
en lo que es el transbordador espacial
So
y ya
NASA,
saben más o
and
menos
we
cómo va a
realized
ser
that,
su
NASA realized
comportamiento.
that, they gave us a goal. They said, goal number one is don't sacrifice the reliability. So you got to keep that up at a high level, but take 30% out of the cost. And so that's what we're doing. In fact, the folks back where I work in California, we're working on Artemis 5 and 6 and 7. We're working on those brand new engines. And so we're doing that in a lot of different ways. Some ways are fairly simple. We built the shuttle for a long time. We know how to do it better, so we can make it more efficiently. Then machining
dice
has
que
become a lot
tampoco va a ser
more
necesario
advanced. Where
crear
you
más de los
might,
que ya
in
tienen
the old days, you
debido
take
a
apart,
que
do some lathe
solo
cuts
las
on it,
primeras
take it
misiones
off
de
the machine,
Artemis,
put it on
lo que
another
serían las
machine,
tres
mill,
primeras,
off the machine,
donde
grind.
se van a realizar
Now
con
we have
este cohete
machine
que sería
centers.
el bloque 1.
We set
Ya
that
en las misiones
part up
posteriores, que
one time,
serían
and we can do mill
Artemis
cuts,
4, 5,
lathe
6,
cuts,
7,
grind
se
cuts.
van a
It
realizar con
saves
los
time and it
cohetes, bueno,
saves.
SLS
You don't get
primero
as many
con los
anomalies, you don't
modelos
get as many
el
problems
2.
with it. But to me, the most exciting one is 3D printing. You know, nowadays it started out just being in plastic and wax and stuff. Now we can print just about any material you want.
It's like the Star Trek replicator, right?
Yes, it's very Star Trek-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so now we can take those parts that used to take months to build conventionally, we're taking weeks. Or if they took weeks, we're taking days. And so you can, you know, time is money, literally. And so we're cutting out the cost with that. But I'm an old designer, so I get actually excited about the fact that that's going to change the way we look at building hardware. Now, instead of building hardware to function, but also to be able to lathe cut it, mill cut
Habla
it,
de
now we
que,
just look
bueno,
at the function.
se está trabajando con el mismo
And so,
departamento con el que se
in
trabajó
turbopumps,
durante
where does the fluid
la
want to
era del
flow?
transbordador espacial.
For
Saben cómo
stress,
realizar
where does the
estos
stress
cohetes de una
lines
forma
going?
bueno,
And it's
de
gonna
mejor
look very
forma para
organic.
que sean
I think
incluso
we're gonna change
más
the
eficientes
face
de
of
lo
the
que
design
eran
when we
y de
start
lo que
doing this.
son
Right now we're replicating
actualmente.
what we do now, and so those are the first steps in 3D printing, and it's working great. And we'll be going the next step. But we're hitting that 30%. We're hitting that, and we've actually got designs in play right now. We think we can get 50%.
Oh,
out of
wow.
it. And so we need to do that if we're going to be sustainable for this
Nice.
vehicle.
And one thing that you said there too, like the safety and the reliability of the
Right.
these engines. I mean, these are either the most reliable or very close to being the most
Yeah.
reliable in the world for what has flown.
Right.
I mean, and what does that mean to you? Because you obviously had to. The engines were key to getting astronauts back safely in the
Right.
shuttle. That's not necessarily the case now with SLS, but their reliability is still really important.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you all?
Oh, I mean, that's key. And, you know, first of all, it's and we believe this, and it's drummed into us back home, that the astronauts are our ultimate customer, and we have got to keep them safe. So reliability for the safety of the astronauts is paramount. But now there's even a different importance, I'll call it. For instance, launch windows. We're reliable to be ready to fly when we need to fly. Now, I hope we launch tonight. We're gonna launch
Yes,
tonight.
we all do. Yeah, listen.
Yeah, there you go. If we don't, we're going to go on the 19th.
Mhm.
Or we're going to go on the 25th. Okay, that's fine now. But if you're going to Mars, and that's our ultimate goal, you miss a launch window to Mars, you could wait 2 years. So you need to be ready to fly when you need to fly. So that's the other part of reliability that we're really trying to protect.
Gotcha. Well, Doug, thank you so much. And
confiabilidad
best of luck to
de
you and
los
all of the
modelos.
teams
To all of
today. And
us.
Que
hopefully
son
we get to
100%
hear
seguros.
the roar of the
No
RS-25s
se
again.
espera
Wow, it'll be exciting.
que
will
se
indeed.
produzca ninguna
And I hope you enjoy it wherever
ningún
you're
tipo de
watching from tonight.
accidente.
Yeah, you as well, Chris.
Thank you much. And Das, back to you.
All right, let's see here. I think we're back over here, so we'll get back in with the team Jack and friends over here. Get some new zoom ins. I think we are completely clear. Jack, we got you back on?
You got me back on. What a cool interview. I'm loving this this new feature that we've added to our broadcasts.
Yeah, it's the first time we've done that sort of thing. I am doing my very level best to keep the rocket on the stream. Actually, we had some RS-25 engines there on the stream while we had someone talking, an expert in the RS-25 engine. So I thought that was kind of cool. But first time we've done stuff like that. We don't do a lot of face cams, but I was pretty happy. How do you think it went?
Oh, I'm stoked. I'm stoked on it. I think it went great. I just look forward to all of the knowledge that these subject matter experts can bring to our streams and any cool stuff that we can do with this magical new technology. Very cool. That was super cool.
All right, I think we had a little bit of an update while we were in the interview there. Who wants to read us in on what the update was?
Oh, I wanted. Because they found out why the radar is not longer working. And apparently it's because of a bad Ethernet switch. which okay. And
do the joke. Do the joke. Do it.
The one I posted. Okay.
Do it.
Okay, that crazy that SLS might be scrubbed for the same reason that my LAN party in 2009 did not work. There we go.
Yes. Bad Ethernet switch. So how long is it going to take him to fix that? Hopefully they can fix it, right?
Oh, that's a good question. Glad that you asked. It will take them 70 minutes. Talking while muted?
Yeah, that's my bad. 70 minutes to fix a broken Ethernet switch. With what are we at? We're a little over an hour away from the window opening. So let's see. We are at an hour and 17 minutes to go. So there is time before the window open to get that Ethernet switch fixed. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But currently, that is the issue with the range, and they're working to fix it.
It's certainly possible that they still can do it. It's just it's a bit funny, so that's why we did a bit of funny talk there. But of course, we hope they resume it and they can gonna go on after fixing this. And also, there was, I think, another update about the replenishing. No, there was not. Okay, then we are still waiting for that. But yeah, we are getting closer and closer here. So let's hope they can fix these last issues, both on rocket and on radar, and then we might see an SLS launch.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Clock is steadily ticking down, and we are back into our standard coverage. And if you have any questions, you can @ NASA Spaceflight in chat. We'll answer your questions. I'm gonna run through some super chats really quick. Adam, thank you for the support. Where are we obtaining our updates for the launch? Technical issues going on. There's a stream that y'all are listening to, right?
Yes, we are listening to the media channel feed from NASA.
Got it.
That's where we get the updates.
Dennis, thank you for the support. They say, I wish I had you guys back in the Apollo days to have a better understanding of the program. There was only so much Walter Cronkite could do. Wow, that's very high praise. Also, I note that your super chat is 1972. I suspect that was intentional. Thank you so much for the support and the praise. Simon, thanks for the support and the curly L's. They say, you guys keep upping your game. Everything about your production and coverage just gets better and better. Keep up the great work. Great job, everyone. Thank you so much. I say it, you know, when I'm thanking people for the support, when I'm thanking the people who are becoming members and whatnot, like, we're constantly trying to up our game and do better and cooler stuff and more things and more cameras and better cameras and more angles and better angles. And so thank you, Simon. It really means a lot to us that it's noticed. You know, our hard work is not just it's not just going by the wayside. So thank you, Scott. Thanks for the support. Here's one for maybe a new friend. How can an engine run at 109%? What's the deal with that? It's about how they were originally rated versus an increased power level and not wanting to go back and retcon the original power level. It's something along those lines, if I'm not mistaken.
That's also how I understand it, yes.
So rather than just like, you know, making a new 100% and then having to have, you know, cross references everywhere, they just stuck with the original baseline, and that is why it is 109. The engines are more powerful now, but they are still based off of that original power setting. Let's see here. Bash Coder, thanks for the support. They say, my earliest memories are of Apollo 11 and Episode 1 of Sesame Street, 1969. Wow, that's cool. Thanks for the support there. Kyle Rudolph, thank you. They said the interview was incredible. Thanks for all you do covering modern spaceflight. Thanks. I'm glad. We're so glad people enjoyed the interview. What on earth?
Yeah, same.
The Robot Devil, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. Nobody knows why I said that, but it's just going to have to live with it. Matthew S., thank you for the support. They're also loving the interviews. Jackball TV, thank you. Joseph Pistrito, thank you for the support from Maryland. Donald, thanks for the support. True North, thank you so much for the 79 Australian dollar dues. Also, they say awesome coverage, NSF team, very cool addition with special guests. All the best from Sydney, Australia. Thank you so much, True North. We really appreciate that. It's a significant amount of money, and we don't take that lightly. And once again, we'll do what we can do to continue to up our game here. Donald, thank you again. Sean, thank you for the support. They say it's always a network issue. Jonathan, thanks for the support. This has been watching all day. Awesome coverage. Thank you. And Mark R, thanks for becoming a red team member. Cool. Whew. Do we have... okay. So we're kind of, you know, just hanging out right now, waiting for updates on what's going on with the range issue, the radar, and the Ethernet switch, and what's going on with that leaky valve, and if that fix worked. So yeah, kind of holding. Let's see.
I was
we'll
about to say,
go ahead.
about to say, like, at least we are comfortable at home, but then I noticed, oh wait, you're not.
The mosquitoes are out in force, and fun fact, that light that we were using for the interviews attracted like a cloud of them, and I'm not even kidding, I felt a mosquito on my arm, and I slapped it, and there was like this might be a little gross, sorry. There's like a whole bunch of blood on my arm, because the mosquito was like in the process of sucking my blood. Thank you, mosquitoes. You're the worst creature. No one would be mad if you ceased existing and blinked off the face of the earth. We all hate you. So yes, Adrian, I'm glad you're comfortable. I am currently like clinging to my chair, attempting to not be carried off by a cloud of mosquitoes. But you know what? I'm at Kennedy Space Center at the press site, and I'm looking at SLS with my own two eyes, and I'm live streaming this stuff to the world with some good friends of mine. So you know what? I will battle the mosquitoes for hours if that's what it takes. I'm extremely lucky to be here. So comfortable or not,
Would an update make you happy?
An update would soothe my weary soul. Give me that update.
Okay, then I will give you that update. The upper stage is in fast fill for liquid hydrogen. The core stage is in liquid hydrogen replenish. Currently, the upper stage, the ICPS is at 58% hydrogen. And for the lock side, both stages are in replenish. The range is saying that they need to take a little bit longer to verify the Ethernet switch, and they think it's about 50 minutes left in work for the range.
Okay.
So
it's just like a LAN party where you get all the computers set up, and then you spend 6 hours getting everything to work, and then you
you get
like a half a game in, and then it stops working, and then you have to troubleshoot it some more, and then everyone just eats pizza and falls asleep on the couch.
Yeah, and also everybody has like the different versions of the game, and then they cannot connect to each other in LAN, and you cannot play. And you try to find each other in the Age of Empires lobby, and like we all know that, right?
And like one guy with the Mac is like, why can't we play this game? And everyone's like, shut up. Anyway.
Why did they leave us two here?
They did though. That's what they did. So be it. I think we're working on getting some more voices in here shortly, but hopefully they are able to get that Ethernet switch re-verified and get the range green once again. So estimated time for that 50 more minutes, which I know the clock ticking down in the top left says minus 39. There is a hold. So the actual time until the window open is 1 hour and 9 minutes. So that is what we're looking at there. Hopefully that gives them plenty of time to do what they need to do. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Let's see, what should we do next? It's like I have a whole menu of things in front of me, and I get to pick. You know what? What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to thank Northrop Grumman once again. One, for letting us have Doug Hurley on. That was super cool. Two, for, of course, sponsoring this stream. That's why you see their logo up there in the top right. 3 for, building essential parts of this launch vehicle. Definitely happy that they're doing that because this is a cool thing to get to see and watch. But yeah, Northrop Grumman, very, very cool of them to help us out and sponsor us on the stream. I mean, if you don't know, they're the builder of the GEM 63 and 63XL solid rocket motors for Atlas V and Vulcan. They're the prime contractor for the composite materials of the white parts of the Delta IV and Delta IV Heavy rockets. They are the manufacturer of numerous space, robotic, telecommunications, and defense program satellites on the Geostar and Espastar satellite buses. Most recently, you guys might remember the Galaxy 33 and 34 launch for that C-band replacement for Intelsat. And there was also, right before I flew out to Florida, we were treated to the wonderful JPSS-2 weather satellite launch out of Vandenberg, and that was, Northrop manufactured that satellite as well. So, of course, also Northrop operates Antares, which is such a cool rocket, and they do a lot of cool things from the mission extension vehicle to all sorts of cool stuff. Once again, Stargazer, the last flying L-1011, and the original commercial air launch vehicle. Such cool stuff. So thank you once again to Northrop for supporting our stream. We have an update. Stand by for the update. Leak has not occurred again. That is fantastic. That is exactly what we want to hear. So the work seemingly was successful. Absolutely what we want to hear. The core stage is in liquid hydrogen replenish, and that is exactly what we want to hear. Yay! That's amazing.
That would mean they're right now basically not besides the Ethernet switch, which they think they have a solution for. I'm sorry. They are not working any issues on the rocket or the launcher, right? They are just getting it ready. Right now, there's like nothing there. They're really concerned on the rocket itself.
Yep, right now the issue being tracked, the one issue being tracked ahead of launch is that range issue. So we'll see what is going on there. Oh goodness, hopefully they can get that Ethernet switch fixed and we can get this giant space land party launched into orbit. I don't even know. What did I even just say? Why would you laugh at that? It doesn't even make sense.
That was so good. That's why.
Did you tell them we have an extra switch? Like we actually plan for that and we have a standby switch in case we need one?
Wait, I thought we were using the standby switch because the original switch, things happened to it, let's say.
No. It was fine. We tested it out and it came back in nominal, so.
Okay.
It swims perfectly.
I will go let them know. I think, am I jumping off and you're jumping on? Is that what's happening here?
No, we left you and Adrian by yourselves for too long, so they need a third person to come keep an eye on things. So I'm just gonna hop in if that's okay.
So you're going to dad us.
Let's go with that, sure.
Yeah, this feels like there was like an emergency meeting in the background. They were like, they're alone on stream. Like, we need to do something here. And
quick, Jack is gonna start yelling about movies that Adrian hasn't seen. Although I'm still shocked you've seen The Matrix. Good job. I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
Yeah, so good updates there, though. I definitely encouraging to hear that, and we'll just see what the timeline effect is going to be, because the T-minus clock is approaching the 34-minute mark here. That's going to go down to T-minus 10 minutes, but then it's going to stop there. We already know it's going to stop for at least a half hour. However, what my guess is going to be is that hold will be extended to accommodate whatever work is needed to finish prop load on to the ICPS, because it sounds like core stage is good to go. And then any other time needed to work the range issue and get that completely resolved. So no slip reported yet or anything like that, but we will see if that comes at a later time.
And Thomas, if you want to mess with the panel, we've got it right here. Speaking of that, Johan is asking, does the Ethernet switch have an SCE switch? I mean, if it does, we should switch it to aux, right? Didn't.
I think that's how that works, yeah.
Thanks for confirming that. You're supposed to make the stream more serious, I thought.
Oh, you have the wrong impression.
Yeah, I feel like at this point Thomas is also for a significant amount of time without sleep, so this might make it worse.
Absolutely.
Nice.
All right, with the chaos energy going strong, we are continuing into the count here. Still waiting to hear back what's going on with the timeline, if they're still targeting the opening of the window, or if they're going to need more time. We did hear a little bit earlier about the expectation that we were going to eat into the window a little bit, so we are standing by and waiting to hear more on what's going on. Oh, I just yawned. Sorry for that. I couldn't stop myself. You know what that means? It's more caffeine time. Whee!
You need like a jingle.
So you're going into caffeine replenish then?
Yeah, so I was in a hold. You know, I was in stop flow, and now I'm going to enter stable replenish once again. Yeah, maybe. Thank you, Sawyer. Maybe I need fast fill. But then, what if a leak occurs?
Something. Ethernet switch. I don't have anything here. Sorry.
I'll take it. Let's see here. A lot of people are. Geez, a lot of people went with the SCE to aux joke in chat. Let's see. Looking for some more questions. Don't forget, you can @ NASA Spaceflight and throw your question in chat, and we'll see it, and we might answer it.
Alex in the back channel saying gentle and careful load of caffeine.
Yeah, it's a very gentle and kind load of caffeine. Oh no, where did that go? Somebody was asking if we could put cameras close enough to the rocket for them to get damaged potentially. I think the ones that are inside the fence might get a little, shall we say, spicy, so a little spicy cloud action. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, we are afforded as media the ability to put remote cameras. I think the closest ones are about 1,000 feet from the rocket, and of course it's a very large rocket, and those solid motors do produce a little bit of residue, shall we say. Thomas, you're looking at me like you have words to say.
Yeah, well, yeah, first of all, we do actually have to sign paperwork that acknowledges the risk to our camera equipment when we put it that close. But yeah, also that exhaust from solid rocket boosters, especially when they interact with the sound suppression water system, is acidic and can definitely eat up your camera. So, of course, the objective is for the SD card to survive, and once you get there, we're fine, because that's how you get the photos back.
Yeah, and it's sort of like a game of chicken in terms of how much of a camera or how much equipment you want to put in what places. There's some places are safer than others just by nature of distance or what have you. I mean, personally, I have slowly over time accumulated a whole bunch of older cameras from friends selling them or from Craigslist or eBay or what have you. And when there is a camera that is a potential extra danger to it, I typically set cameras where if that camera went kaput, I wouldn't be super sad about it. But then sometimes you're like, but what if I put a really good camera there? And such is the nature of being a rocket photographer.
We'll jump in here because we did just pass another milestone in the countdown. We are less than an hour away from the opening of the window now. You see the T-minus clock has gone under 30 minutes, and there is a 30-minute built-in hold coming at T-minus 10 minutes. So we're under an hour from the opening of the window, and again, it's to be determined whether they're going to be able to stick to that opening of the window. They are working on resolving that range issue, so that has the potential to push into the window, but it's a 2-hour-long launch window, so they do have lots of other time, and no other issues being worked. All of the fueling operations are basically getting close to wrapping up, and so ideally it will be a short delay if there's one at all, and we'll relay that as soon as we have it.
Indeed, we will. Off Nominal is asking, has the rocket dried out since getting way too wet during the hurricane? What happens if it's still wet? Off Nominal, you are crazy, but thank you for the extremely generous super chat. If it wasn't clear, that is a not serious remark. What are we hearing?
Love you guys.
What is that in the background? That was interesting. Okay, but yeah, thank you, Phenomenal. Definitely love the space memery. MC, thank you for the support. They say when hop, hopefully when orbit in this case, and hopefully in sometime during tonight's launch window. James, thank you for the support. They say been waiting for this launch. Let's go, gamers. Nitsu, thank you for the gifting 10 red team memberships. Very generous of you. Brian, thank you for the support. They say, why does a core flare inward at the base? What is that, aerodynamics or structural? Love the interviews. I'm looking at you, Thomas. Why does a core stage flare inward at the base?
Core stage flare. Oh, I see. Okay, yes. So I believe that is primarily an aerodynamic load. I mean, if you design the core stage where it's just like a cylinder and you just had a hard corner at the bottom, that's probably not as aerodynamically favorable as if you give it a little bit of a taper there. You have a lot of different considerations in that part. You got to fit all of the engine plumbing. There's aerodynamics, there's thermal constraints. You got to fit some thermal protection systems and things like that there. So there's probably lots of other factors that have gone into whatever the heck that shape ended up being. But aerodynamics is part of that equation, I'm sure, yes.
Yeah, Philip calls that the boat tail, I think, right? Which always makes me think of like a 1972 Buick Riviera, which I don't know why that's in my brain, but it is. Google it. It's a cool car. Speaking in school, very excited, they say. Thank you for the support. Jeff Barksdall, thank you for the support. Kenneth Marinotti, thank you for the support. They say, just clocked out at work. Crossing my fingers that they actually launched this time. I really appreciate your coverage. Very informational. I've learned a lot. Thank you so much, Kenneth. That's very kind of you. Thanks for the support there, buddy. Snazzy Ferret says, ha, mosquitoes. It was negative 15C up here in Canada today. Okay, I will take mosquitoes over cold any day of the week. I'm not built
for the record. I'm not.
Well, you know, to each their own.
Yes.
You know, there's like services where you can like mail somebody a whole bunch of bees or something. Like, can I mail you a whole bunch of mosquitoes? Can I do that?
No.
Just to get back at you for your.
What's that kind of question?
It's the kind of question I ask at 12:07 a.m. after not having slept very much in the last several days. I'm sorry.
Is there any person in the world that would say yes? I would love.
If you get a box in the mail and it's buzzing, just go in an enclosed space and open it. I think that would probably be the safest thing to do in that circumstance.
NASA Spaceflight not responsible for personal safety regarding Jackson phones.
You couldn't even finish saying it without laughing. That's amazing. Oh man. G-Mez, thank you for the support. They say the Ethernet switch when the walls fell. Oh my god, this is a Star Trek reference that I'm gonna totally butcher. It's Shaka when the walls fell? Oh my gosh. It's the one where the aliens talk in like metaphor. It's a whole thing. Darmok with his eyes open. Darmok with his eyes closed. I don't know. That's Star Trek. If you don't know Star Trek, you should watch it. Shaka when the walls fell? Thank you. I'm getting messaged by my friend Colleen. Thank you, Colleen. Max, thanks for the support. What are the odds this is the only SLS to fly being replaced by Starship? I don't think there's high odds that it'll be replaced by Starship. But you know, who's to say how many times Artemis will, SLS will fly? We were talking about this earlier, that NASA has committed to buying parts up to Artemis 9. So, you know, potentially around 9 at least at this point, which may not sound like a lot, but then when you think that the Delta IV Heavy has flown, I think 11 times, maybe it's 12, not a lot of times in a decade since it was first flown. So, you know, 10 flights of SLS would be a fairly significant, I think, number of flights. Thomas, what is your read there?
Yeah, so buying parts for future rockets, you know, as the kind of long lead items, doesn't necessarily guarantee that those rockets will fly. I mean, we have Saturn V's lying around that have clearly not flown, but that's the intent currently. They have looked into the future and said, we intend on flying at least 9 SLSs, so we've purchased the parts needed for that. That conversation has a lot of different parts to it, and I think a big lesson that NASA has hopefully learned from the International Space Station program, and they're carrying that into kind of finishing the ISS and moving on towards moon missions with Artemis, is that you want to avoid a gap in capability by retiring a vehicle too quickly. Right now, SLS is the only vehicle close to operations that will be able to deliver crew to a moonlander. Right now, the moonlander is Starship, and that is coming up in its development phase, ready to support its part of the mission. But getting Starship, for example, to the point where it's capable of launching humans from Earth and getting them all the way to the moon, rather than just delivering a empty lander to the moon and waiting for the crew to arrive on Orion and SLS. That's going to take some extra time, and so ideally, the goal here is for SpaceX to basically, or for any other launch provider, it could be another vehicle that comes up, but SpaceX Starship is the obvious example of them to demonstrate the capability of launching humans all the way from the Earth's surface up to lunar orbit, for example, and an end-to-end mission to the lunar surface that doesn't require SLS or Orion before you then retire the SLS vehicle, and there's hopefully overlap in whatever the replacement vehicle is with SLS. Because that way you don't have a gap in access to the lunar surface. That helps maintain continuity in your science research and your other exploration objectives, your technology development, and all of those things. So are these SLS eventually going to be retired? Obviously, but ideally it's going to be after the development is ready to take its place and not the replacement is still 5 years away from actually flying. How many SLSs that will be, not sure. 9 or 10 is maybe a decent estimate, but could be even more than that, could be less. It really depends on how Starship and other vehicles proceed in their development program. So that's a wait and see kind of deal. Right now, SLS has got several flights to go because it has to not just deliver crews for the first few missions, but deliver modules of the Gateway Station too. So SLS has its job to do and will for several years in a row.
Thank you for that, Thomas. And thanks, Max, for the good question. Fabian, thank you for the support there. Gary McLaughlin, thank you for the support. They like the special guests. They're an engineer with Lockheed Martin on Orion and really love the inside tech data. That is a cool job, Gary. We'll keep trying to get cool guests on whenever we can. I think it's a cool thing that we're able to do. Fabian, again, thank you for the support. They say from Argentina with love, which is pretty surreal given that we're what, 3-5 miles away, something like that.
3, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I sure hope it goes tonight. Robert, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. Don't forget about the member program, everybody. It exists. You can sign up, support us for a monthly amount at whatever level you want to pick, and you get different perks. And it's the bedrock upon which our entire channel is built. So thank you to all of our members. And there's cool perks. Get the cool perks. Why don't you have the cool perks yet? Get the cool perks. Be a member. I'm just gonna start treating the audience as like a hostile witness. Your Honor, your Space Honor. Objection. I don't know anything about the law, except I watched a whole bunch of Better Call Saul. Joseph, thank you for the support. L. Dewey MD, thank you so much. Robert Easterbrook, thank you for becoming a member of the Red Team. Mark R, thank you for the support. They say, I have a 56K modem NASA can borrow. That's hilarious. Trent Thompson, thanks for the gifting of a Red Team membership. Eric says, spicy meatball. Thank you for the support, Eric. What was that in reference to the spicy hydrazine
Spicy
cloud?
exhaust, I think, yeah.
Oh, the spicy exhaust, that's right. That might roast cameras. You don't want a camera to be a meatball, though. That would be bad.
So you're saying we shouldn't put out meatballs with our remote cameras as a science experiment?
No, nor should you put out birdseed. Ninja Decimator. Let's see here. They say caffeine fun for Jack. Go buy another Monster. I'm sipping on Red Bull number 2 here. I think I'm set. Thank you. This stream not sponsored by Red Bull. Let's see. Ninja Decimator.
By the way, hydration check for everyone.
Yeah, everybody drink water. Doug Loot, thank you for the support. They say if they intend to build more engines after these are used up, have the industrial lines been started? That's a long effort. Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit earlier. They are restarting the production lines, and that they have been given a specific budget just for that, just for starting the production lines back up. Right, Thomas?
Yes, exactly. And, they have an inventory of shuttle hardware regarding SRB casings, regarding RS-45 engines. You have the ICPSs, the upper stages for the first 3 SLSs that are all Block 1 configuration are all already in production are almost done, because those are just Delta IV upper stages, and that line is going to be closing soon. That will, of course, be replaced by a different upper stage in the future. But for the parts that will need to be resumed production, such as the RS-25s and booster casings, those are opening up, and some of those also, like we heard earlier, are going to include design changes and upgrades, whether it's changes in performance or
ya solo
changes
falta
in like how
que se
easy it
complete
is to
una
manufacture
secuencia
things and stuff like
para
that. There's a lot of things they can improve.
que se realice ya el lanzamiento. Esta secuencia es del
We should
motor
point out
principal,
that the clock will stop
sería de
soon,
la
I
parte
think.
central del
With
cohete.
the
En este
we are
momento ya
approaching the
las
10
cámaras
minute
todo ya se
hold
retiraron de
which will happen in
bueno,
in
no
8
las cámaras,
minutes.
o sea, sí, las
Quick
cámaras
math
no,
there.
las personas. En
And
este momento ya
yeah,
todo se está
don't wonder, that's planned.
controlando vía
This
remota.
clock will stop in 7 minutes, 7 minutes and 40 seconds.
Yeah, so don't be wary when the clock does stop. That's expected.
Okay, hay
Let's see here. Doug,
probabilidad de
thanks for
que
the
se
support. They say
cancele
if they intend to
el
build more
vuelo.
engines after. Oh, we already did that one. Thank you, Doug, for the support and the question
Esperemos
there.
que no.
San, thank you for becoming a red team member. Belgaride or Belgrade A, thanks for the support. They say thanks for the coverage. Moldy Space, what's up, Moldy? Saying Thomas Fan Club.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Moldy.
Moldy, update us in chat or Discord what your most recent Kerbal crime was, because we know you like to make those cursed rockets, and they're so delightfully horrible. Robert Bradley, thank you for the support. As always, big thank you to y'all for the stream. Best team spaceflight coverage, hands down. Oh, that's sweet of you. Jealous of y'all at the press site. Can't wait to see the glow from Central Florida. Oh, it's going to be a beautiful launch. Wherever you are in Florida, should be, basically wherever you are, it should be visible at some point during a launch. I definitely remember as a kid seeing shuttle launches from Tampa, and wow, the solid rocket boosters are insanely bright, even from that sort of distance. So hopefully you get a good view today, tonight, Robbie. Let's see here. Jack T. Rex, interesting name there. Thank you for the support. They say, what is the makeup temperature of the exhaust coming out of the flame trench? Similar to pyroclastic flow? Or does the water drastically bring down the temperature? Well, when the RS-25...
Ok, bueno, estamos a solo ya 15 minutos de lanzamiento con 52 segundos. Y bueno, otra cosa interesante que va a ser el SLS, bueno, lleva maniquíes, los cuales están hechos de una resina especial, la cual interactúa con lo que es la radiación del espacio, como si fueran huesos humanos, para saber qué tanto nos afectaría estar en la cápsula en la que se encuentran en este momento. También tienen diferentes instrumentos para saber cuál es la presión máxima que se va a sentir durante el despegue y asimismo en el reingreso, que será en 42 días como mencioné al inicio. Y ya estamos a nada de que empiece todo esto. Bueno, de que empiece no, de que termine o de que empiece el inicio. 14 minutos.
You will see, you know, the two SRB plumes with a gap in the middle, because the RS-25 exhaust isn't even really exhaust. You'll see a Mach diamond, ideally, but you won't see any, you know, opaque exhaust coming from those engines. It burns clean, and that goes for most hydrogen engines. I know that Delta IV, which I know Jackie saw recently, has a little bit of an orange tint to that exhaust, and that's just a matter of like the alloys that are present in the engines and some ablative material and stuff like that. But otherwise, they burn pretty clean too.
Yes, indeedy. All right. Well, as we wait for more updates and as we wait for what is going on with the Ethernet switch with the range and getting the clock down to the point where it's going to hold at T-8. Definitely want to once again mention that we have the merch store. We've got some cool new SLS merch. I love this merch. This design is super cool. We end up doing the orange one. Either way, the exploded SLS shirt is awesome. The moon shirt is awesome. All kinds of cool SLS stuff on the store. So if you want to show your space launch system love, be sure to check out the merch store. And that's not all. We also have calendars for 2023. We are going to be having these in the store. I'm not sure when we're going to take them down, but either way, get these before 2023, obviously, because there's a 2023 calendar. We have 2 different variants. We've got a general spaceflight variant. You can see all the cool different images there in the general calendar variant, and we also have a Starship specific variant. So there are 2 different calendars. They're a super cool way to sort of get prints on your wall without the hassle of buying a print or having to get something framed, or where am I going to put it. It's like each calendar is 12 photos or more in some cases because of the layout, that you can have on your wall and appreciate throughout the year. So, and if you get both, there's a discount. So get both calendars, get a discount, support our streams, support what we do, and have some art on your walls. So, yep, that's the merch store. Thanks for bearing with me through that.
And we had an update.
Oh, give me update.
Okay.
Give me.
Que acaban de dar
The upper stage is at 75% hydrogen load, which, yeah, it's progressing. And we will also get an update on the range situation, aka the network switch, very shortly. So we are standing by for that part of the update, but it looks like the rocket itself is progressing nicely.
Ok, parece que
Adrian,
la
how do you
estructura
say
todo del cohete
replenish
se
in German?
encuentra por el
Auf
momento
Deutsch.
muy bien. Ya
Like
está
the
al
German word for it?
75% de su capacidad de combustible.
Oh my god, I'm not sure.
El combustible líquido está aquí en el centro.
Let me auffüllen.
Yay! Okay, thank you. Sorry to put you on
I
the
swear
spot.
I'm German. I swear
No
I'm
sé,
German.
algo estaban
I was
hablando
like,
desde el
buddy,
inicio
you're
de
in Germany right now, right? You're not just
algún
like catfishing
switch
us this whole
de
time.
internet que murió.
Let's see
Nunca logré
here.
entender eso, así que
Bum, 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 bum.
ese ya no importa. Bueno, estamos a 10 minutos. Bueno,
Looking for
11,
some more
11, 11.
questions to answer.
Ya mismo.
Johan asking, when moon? Hopefully tonight.
Well, technically, the moon doesn't happen until flight day 6. I
1.
mean, it takes a couple days to get there.
Estamos a solo
It's the whole
10
Jack's giving me a
minutos de el lanzamiento.
But yes, hopefully the journey starts tonight. I
Ya
should point out really
mismo
quick,
se llenan los
we'll have more
tanques
questions
de
and things, but we are
hidrógeno
coming up on the
líquido.
T-minus 10-minute mark as well, 10:45 and counting. The clock will hold at T-minus 10 minutes. That is 100% expected. I should have missed opportunity to say 109% expected. No, I messed that one up. It's fine. Get the next one. That it'll be at least a 30-minute built-in hold. However, based on that range update that we're hopefully getting soon, we will have an idea if that's going to get stretched a little bit. Again, no, the countdown clock has not been adjusted from the opening of the window yet. So they have 2 hours of room to delay T0 if they need to. But we will, obviously, we don't have a new T0 to report yet. We're just expecting that there's a possibility, and once that range update comes in, we'll have a better idea if that delay will occur, and if so, how much it'll be. Here comes the T-minus 10-minute mark, and there we go. T-minus 10 minutes and holding, as expected, less than a half an hour from the opening of the window.
It would have been way funnier if now the clock just kept on ticking and we started to panic and we're like, okay, they never briefed us on that. What's happening now? But sadly, that didn't happen. I think Jack is talking while muted. Is that a possibility here?
Nope, he's not. He was letting you talk. But yeah, into the hold as expected, and this will last at least 30 minutes. Hopefully getting that range update soon. That's the only open item as far as just finishing out, like I said, liquid hydrogen load into that upper stage that's up above 75% by this point.
Excellent. Let's see here. Oh, do we have Philip back? Philip, are you there?
I'm listening to launch control right now. But
Parece que
I think right now it's kind of a horse race. Sorry, Crispy. It's a kind of a horse race between getting the upper stage configured for launch and this range computer network connectivity recovery, I guess. It sounds like it might be a little
era
more
la
complicated
computadora
than what we
de
think
la
of.
nave,
Maybe
entonces la que
what
no
we
vale.
think of is, or maybe what I think of as an Ethernet switch. This might be one of those much more complicated, enterprise virtual type of network switches. So
yeah, it has been replaced apparently. The switch has been replaced, and also the update that it might that is also critical for the FTS to be activated. So that's why it's such a concern about this. So yeah, it has been replaced, but that also explains why it is such a concern.
Right, and it's probably a little bit fancier of an Ethernet switch than somebody like me is used to working with. So it's maybe not quite so easy to either hot swap or warm swap or cold swap. So
lukewarm swap.
I like warm swap a lot.
Yeah, but yeah, this is probably a little more complicated than a home Ethernet switch.
You just bend the paper clip, right, and you push it in a little hole and push the button on the back of the router, right? This just resets it. You're good to go. What's the problem?
Maybe not.
Parece que el problema ha sido más complicado de lo que se pensaba, eso del switch internet.
But yeah, when they stopped flow for the leak on the core stage valve complex, they obviously stopped flow for the upper stage as well, and so you have the hydrogen flows from the storage tank out to the mobile launcher, and then it branches there, but it's if they have a leak over there, it probably forces them to stop, basically completely stop hydrogen flow, and so it looked like they were a little behind on the hydrogen side of the ICPS. I think they got started a little earlier than the liquid oxygen and then fell behind. But I think what was I think we heard 78%. So it's getting up there, but we're already in the hold at T-minus 10 minutes. So we'll see how close we can get to the opening of the window, but it might be a little tight.
Ok, esperamos que se solucione rápido el problema, que en unos minutos se abrirá la ventana.
45? No, 35 minutes. About 35 minutes to the opening of the window, give or take. So we'll see.
Ok, tenemos como media hora.
But there is, at least in this case, rising confidence, I would say, that they will get to this last 10-minute flow for this attempt, right? Because it looks good so far.
Yeah, well, I think it sounds like the core stage is will be ready to go here pretty soon if it isn't already kind of configured for terminal count. The upper stage, we just need to get the hydrogen system into stable replenish, and then it'll be it's a much smaller stage, and so it might not take as long. It shouldn't take as long to get it. They may need to be in replenish for some bit of time. So it's really the question is, this is what we were talking about a little while ago with the countdown clock. So we're in the hold at T-minus 10 minutes, and really at this point we're not sure that we could really pin an L- clock down to the second. At this point, really what we're waiting for is to see when they pick up the clock. And so as we were talking about, the opening of the window is at 1:04 a.m. Eastern, and so they would if they were able to pick up and hit the open of the window, they'd be picking up at 54 minutes after the hour, which is in about 24 minutes, but they might not pick up right then. It might take them a little bit longer. You know, we're listening for the status of those two areas from launch control right now.
Awesome.
Ya solo se
Well,
están esperando
hopefully we get some more updates here shortly.
instrucciones.
Is that the moon on the right?
That's cool.
That is cool.
So
Aunque
looks like
bueno,
there's a
esas solo están
little bit of
esperando
clouds,
instrucciones
but
para saber si se lanza o
hopefully-
lo mismo el
It might also just be dew
el
on the
cohete, pero
camera.
Yeah.
Everything at
tenemos
this point is
una
soaked
bella
out here. Like, the tent is
fotillo,
dripping water
bueno,
on
fotillo
us.
no,
The Pelican case next to me
Wow.
looks
una
like it
buena
has a
Wow,
small
so
ocean on the...
de
it's
la
kind of like a
luna.
summertime feel out there
Ah,
tonight.
ya lo quitaron.
Yeah, if I were to walk 100 feet across the grass here, my shoes and pants would be soaked, which is about to be what is going to happen, because I am going to get some cameras set up and start to do camera things. I think I'm going to jump off commentary for a little while, because we're at
Alright.
T-10 and holding, and I'm starting to itch, and I need to get some cameras set up. Or maybe that's just the mosquito bites. Either way, I'm going to jump off here. I think I'm going to be replaced by Hagen as host, right? Is that how we're doing this? And he's not here just yet, but he'll be here shortly. But I'm going to jump off. Y'all are the best. Thanks for the support. I'll see you at some point later.
Jack,
Alright.
Godspeed to you and your cameras, and thank you so much for doing so much talking for today's stream. Always appreciated. Yeah, we'll be getting Hagen Warren in here as a voice to get us into the business end of this countdown here. We got myself, Thomas Burkhart, and also resident expert Philip Sloss on comms already. That's your commentary team right now as we are sitting at the T-minus 10-minute and holding mark, awaiting word of a potential T0 change. In fact, I guess I should say a likely T0 change. We are firmly expecting that the T0 will not be the opening of the window at 1:04. But we will expect an update on that front in the near future and see how far they have to push into the window. It is a 2-hour launch window, so they do have plenty of time to work with, and the delay should hopefully not be too long. And that'll also give them time that if any issues come up in the last 10 minutes of the countdown, they'll be able to recycle back to that 10-minute mark, and they'll be able to work from there. Now, Philip, if I understand this correctly, after T-minus 10 minutes, they have that 10-minute recycle point, and obviously it always depends on the nature of the issue and what exactly they find or what flag comes up. But if they get all the way down to the 33-second mark, that's the handover point where once you get past 33 seconds, you're either launching or you're scrubbing, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. So yeah, they have the ability to all the way up until 1 minute 30 seconds. They could hold. And then from there they could either recycle or resume. And they could go all the way down. But then once they go past there, then they lose the ability to resume. And then at 33 seconds they could hold there and they could recycle. But if they go past 33 seconds and then they stop, then, like you said, it's basically a scrub for the day. But again, we certainly don't have any reason to believe once they pick up at 10 that they're necessarily going to have to stop.
Okay,
We'll see
me
what happens
sale.
when we get there. I think
Ok,
that's
el interruptor de internet ya ha sido
I was
cambiado,
certainly
el
hoping
switch.
that we would get to
Eh,
terminal count,
ya
and I
solo
think we still have a
está,
really reasonably good chance of
están
doing that tonight.
verificando
So
que funcione correctamente
if
para
they're ready
poder
to commit the
proseguir con
vehicle
el
to terminal
lanzamiento.
count, they think they're ready to go, and so we'll just have to, it would be good to start the terminal count and see what happens.
All right. Well, to round out the business end, I'm going to keep saying the business end. That's going to be on the bingo card at this point. Of our countdown and our commentary team here, Hagen Warren, I believe we've got you on comms now, joining us for the last little bit of SLS's countdown. Hagen, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Super excited for this. I mean, like, I'm just pure shaking right now. I mean, we're waiting to go into terminal count for SLS. That's a wild sentence.
Certainly is. The excitement is palpable here at the press site as well, and I hope everyone who's watching is getting excited. We will hopefully have an update on the exact timing of the end of tonight's countdown here shortly. And again, we're going to relay that as soon as we have it. Really quick, we can do a couple of super chats and things like that. Want to thank everyone who sent support this way and see if there's any questions in here as well. James Dury's asked if they tried turning it off and on again. Not sure if that was part of the troubleshooting steps, but probably like at least a 50-50 chance. I'm sure they gave it a shot. We got Kyle Trick offering some super chat support as well. Appreciate it. Mr. Ikoto, I don't know what that name is. My apologies. Says, you guys are great. Really appreciate all you do to spread the love of space. Keep up the awesome work. Much appreciated. The kind words and the support as well. Adam asking what we're talking about when we refer to the range issues that were being worked. Did they mention specifically an Ethernet switch? So literally like a networking component. That was part of a system that was critical for the flight termination system. The range is responsible for that system. Should anything go wrong during the ascent that requires the flight to be terminated by detonating the vehicle, they need all those systems to be up and running at 100%. So they took the time to replace a little bit of networking hardware there. That work is already done. They're just currently evaluating what any adjustments they need to make to the T0, since certain things were delayed from making those changes, as well as addressing some
right. And we had the mobile launcher valve that we had the leak for, and that set back the hydrogen timeline a little bit. So the ICPS, the upper stage is hydrogen tank is still being loaded, and so that's, I think, as I was saying, we're not sure which one of those is going to be the long pole here, but they have to obviously get both of those resolved. They have to get the ICPS into a
Ok, que
configuration to start the terminal
siguen
count, and then
llenando
the
el
range
tanque
obviously has to be
principal
go when they pull.
del
So
combustible, pero no están
you know,
seguros si se va o no a realizar
we're
el
waiting to see
lanzamiento.
whether they can, whether it's still possible. I think, as you said, it's
Y
probably the
parece que,
chances of them making the opening of the window
parece que el
are
clima
it's going to be
también
a
está
challenge.
empezando
But
a
it's,
empeorar, lo cual
if they
tampoco
don't
es
make that, then they, like we've
una
been
buena
saying, they've got
señal,
2
así
hours,
que
and it might, maybe they only miss it by a few minutes. So we're really waiting to hear a T0 time, whether it's going to be the opening of the window
esperemos
or a little later than that.
esperemos que en unos minutos ya den alguna actualización y si no se
Indeed,
acaba.
there we go. So, yeah, so Philip, I know I just joined, and I know that especially since we're getting towards the business end and the very end of this countdown here, a lot more people are joining. Do you want to, maybe give us a basic rundown of what's happened thus far, where we're at in the count, what's vehicle status looking like, the range? I know we had a few issues with that a few minutes ago. So where are we at in the count, and what can we look forward to next?
Well, we're in the final hold before they start the terminal count. So the countdown clock is holding at 10 minutes, and this is different than the way SpaceX does it. But we have a 2-hour launch window here, and so this is a planned hold point in the countdown where they will make sure everybody is ready to go. They'll poll the team, and they will, and this is more like Atlas and Delta, where their terminal countdown hold is at 4 minutes, but they're working a couple of issues. The issues with the hydrogen leaks in terms of
Probablemente en
loading the
4
core
minutos ya
stage.
estén
This during tanking,
todos los sistemas
they did not
funcionales de
see
nuevo,
those. The
ojalá.
procedures that they've been practicing and developing worked tonight, but then they ran into a leak with a I guess I would almost call it an industrial area valve, and it's a valve underneath the rocket on the mobile launcher, on something in basically a valve complex. And so they sent what's called a red crew, just a couple of maintenance people out there to basically tighten the valve down, and that worked. But they probably lost about 90 minutes, and so they're catching up with the core stage and the upper stage. The core stage was already full. They had not completely filled the upper stage, so they're finishing that now. And so That's the one thing, or that's one thing on the vehicle that they're still catching up on, is finishing the loading of liquid hydrogen on the upper
Ok.
stage, the
Sí, siguen
ICPS,
llenando
and then they had
el,
this issue with the
el
range where
combustible.
they had a
La primera
switch
etapa, bueno, no
um,
sería la primera etapa, la etapa
that
superior, por así
either
decirlo,
failed
del
or was
cohete.
not working working up to speed, and so they've had to replace that. And now that we're just waiting to hear if the range is go for
Tienen
launch.
aproximadamente
Not
19 minutos
officially, but
para poder
because they
solucionar
won't
el
get
problema,
pulled for a little while
sino
longer, but just are they ready to go? So
que
I know we're
califica la
getting. It
misión
sounds like we're
como
getting an update
fallida.
from
Otra vez,
launch control right
niños,
now.
tendremos que ir a un
Yeah,
cuarto
so
intento.
while we wait for that update to come in real quick, I do want to just quickly remind everybody, as I said, I know we have a lot of new people joining. If you want to ask us a question, tag us in chat with @NASA Spaceflight. It's going to put it into some fancy software that Michael's developed for us so we can put it up on screen and maybe answer it. So, yes, we have a new update here. Saying in the back channel here that they're currently undergoing an open loop test of the system on the range that is used to send the destruct signal to the rocket. So, you want to talk us through, what exactly all that means there, Philip? Because I know that you've been following this all night, especially the last few minutes with the range issues. So
This is part. This is part of the system that as the update was saying that we got from Alex in the back, it's part of the system that actually communicates the signals to the flight termination system. I'm looking at the updates here because again, those are the two issues that we're dealing with, which is we're dealing with. They're a little behind on because of the leak on the mobile launcher that they fixed, but they're still catching up with the loading the liquid hydrogen on the ICPS, and then this range safety issue with basically the network that all the computers that communicate with this system that helps send that, those would be an arm and a destruct signal from the range safety officer if you needed to do that. They basically, as the update was saying, they're basically retesting their systems after they replaced this Ethernet switch, and this might be one of those, like a 1U rack or even a virtual switch type of an Ethernet switch versus something that you might go out and get at Best Buy, although maybe you can get one of those at Best Buy, but it's a more complicated switch probably than like a 4-port gigabit Ethernet switch. So they're still, and so the update on the ICPS, getting that full, they're still not full yet. They're still they have not reached the topping phase. I guess they were saying they were around 80% and they were doing a test. So they're still a little ways away. And so, yeah, if the launch team was going to hit the opening of the window, they would need to pick up in about 10 minutes. And it doesn't sound like they're going to make that. And so at this point, I think they're still trying to figure out how much more time the range needs to deal with their computers and how much time it's going to take to get the ICPS into a ready to pick up terminal count. So we're still waiting to hear when that's going to be. But they have 2 hours to work with, and so these issues shouldn't take 2 hours to resolve. So, and the weather sounds like, at least last we heard, that the weather was still reasonably good, and so we'll just be waiting to get some sense of when they think they could pick up the clock.
Yeah, and Thomas, you have something to say?
Yeah, just something to follow on to that. As we get into, like you said, they want to get ICPS into stable replenish, a stable configuration, and there might be some set amount of time it needs to be in that configuration before they can pick up the count. Is there anything that teams might be not necessarily worried about, but looking at closely when the vehicle is just, I mean, the core stage has been sitting in stable replenish for a while now. Is there any limiting factors to how long the vehicle can be sitting in that configuration while other issues like the range issue, for example, are worked, or is that all well within the 2-hour launch window that they already have?
I think I think that the core stage is in this is kind of a stable configuration where they are, and really with the vehicle. And so yeah, the vehicle, other than the fact that again they just because of the leak that they had, they're basically catching up on finishing the hydrogen filling of both stages, and in this case it's the ICPS stage. But the vehicle otherwise can kind of sit in this configuration at T-minus 10 minutes and holding through the entire 2-hour launch window. So it's really just, you know, we're getting the updates from Alex in the back here, and basically what he's saying, what he's relaying from launch control is it doesn't look like they're going to make the opening of the window, but you know, it doesn't sound like it still sounds like it's going to be a matter of minutes. You know, I might be over promising here, but it doesn't seem like we're talking about hours to get to a ready to go configuration now. So we'll just have to see. At this point, though, I think, you know, from a vehicle standpoint, I'm kind of curious how long, you know, you were talking about that, Thomas. How long do they need to be in stable replenish for the ICPS before they would be ready to pick up the count and go for launch? So, you know, we're still waiting for both of those, but they're both going to be critical in terms of when we're going to get a T0. So, and that's what we heard in the back was basically launch control said we'll get back to you with a T0 when we have it. So I think it's still a question as to when that's going to happen.
Indeed. And Philip, question that I have for you is that whenever they do go ahead and proceed into terminal count, are they going to give that to us in an update? You know, how are they going to indicate to us that they're getting ready to go into terminal count? What's that process like for preparing for terminal count?
When they're ready, so this is actually this won't be quite so. This will probably happen in a more a more expeditious manner. I think, you know, if everything was nominal and they'd come into this and were thinking they were going to be ready to go right at the opening of the window, then they would take their time with these polls. But I think really what they're going to want to do in the name of saving as much time as they can is once they know that they have once they know they're in a good configuration, then there will be two polls. There will be a launch team poll that will be conducted by the NASA test director, and then there will be a poll of some of the launch team and the range and the weather officer and management by Charlie Blackwell Thompson, who's the launch director. And we'll be listening for that second poll, because if everybody is go in her poll, then she will give the final go to launch the vehicle, and once she does that, they will pick up the count at 10 minutes. They have a little, you know, maybe they have a little bit of flexibility there, but what I suspect is we're going to be listening in once they give us the launch team audio. Hopefully they'll do that. And, you know, they said they were going to give it to us at L minus 15 minutes, but at this point that is kind of a meaningless thing, because we're not, I don't know that we're going to know when we're at L minus 15 minutes except in hindsight. So we're going to be listening to get that poll, and you know, as opposed to sort of a more nominal countdown, it might be that when she gives the go to pick up the count, they pick up the count less than a minute later. It could be very quickly from your go to continue the count to when they pick up the countdown. So, you know, like I said, we're not sure when we're going to get the launch team audio, but that would be a good sign, because hopefully at that point then we'll get a very essentially real-time updates from the launch team about what's going on. So, you know, and we're just going to have to wait and see when they get to that point.
Yes. Yeah, so definitely getting close, and Alex made a good point in the back channel here, saying, you know, that if they were to try and hit the beginning of the window, which, if correct me if I'm wrong, is at 1:04 a.m. Eastern, if they were to hit that window, then that pole that Philip was just talking about should be happening now. And we have no indication of that happening. So definitely doesn't look like they're going to be making the beginning of the window here. But we do have a few questions here that I did want to hit on. Here we go. So I think we might have hit on this quickly earlier, but we have a question here asking, can you explain what a launch window means? I know we were just talking about launch windows and what time they open and close.
Ok, de aquí ya parece que ya no hay lanzamiento, es lo más probable, debido a que el lanzamiento debería estar ocurriendo en estos instantes, ya que está abierto la ventana del lanzamiento. Sí que no. Un gusto estar aquí. Espero que hayan disfrutado, aunque bueno, tampoco hubo mucho que comentar, pero ni modo.
So imagine or just picture the orbit of the moon as
¿Qué
a circle that
dicen?
slices a plane through the Earth. When that plane passes through Cape Canaveral, that gives you your approximate launch time that you can hit. And then based on the relative inclination of that orbit and also the performance of your vehicle and things like that, you get some wiggle room on either side of that. So the longest window we've seen on Artemis I, at least, for that flight profile has been 2 hours long. And the bulk of the launch opportunities in a given launch period are 2 hours. Although if you look at the launch time for other launch opportunities later in the window, not all of the windows are exactly 2 hours. But either way, it comes down to vehicle performance, comes down to where you're going. Can also come down to things like range availability. I mean, it's not practical to keep the range closed off for a launch time for 8 straight hours or something like that. As much as that might be accommodating to the mission, that's closing airspace in the area, that's committing range personnel to being on console for 8 plus out more than 8 hours realistically. So there are other factors that influence how long you can basically reserve for a launch attempt. But the driving factor is physics, and while the team would definitely prefer to be launching in day, I know we've talked about this before, because that gives you some extra imagery, gives you some extra data in that sense. Especially for a test flight like this, the fact is it's not worth delaying the mission significantly until the moon is in the right place where you can launch during the day to postpone this test flight. They can get a lot of data already even without daytime views, and the NASA teams have all pretty much unanimously agreed that that's not an issue that would prevent them from taking these launch opportunities even though they're in the middle of the night. Comes down to every mission. Operational missions will have even less constraints. Test flights also have extra objectives and things to make sure you get as much data as possible on that first flight before you move into the more operational missions.
Yep, there you go. And it does look like we have an update here, given to us in the back channel that upper stage, which is that ICPS, liquid hydrogen is now topping. Also, the range safety officer is testing the flight termination system, which is that system that will terminate the rocket during ascent if anything were to go wrong. And then one more thing, the launch team is currently determining a new launch time for the rocket. So, of course, we've had those delays that have pushed back the launch into the window, but it looks like they're...
Qué buena PC del gobierno.
They might be getting ready to figure out questions. A good, interesting one. I know we had it up on the screen a few minutes ago, but Jay asking, what is the advantage of a mobile launch tower rather than a fixed service structure at the pad? Of course, SLS rolled out with that mobile launch tower, which is that tall tower behind it. But during the Saturn V era, Philip, I know that there was a fixed tower, or actually, no, there wasn't. But during the shuttle era, excuse me, there was a fixed service structure at the pad. Why didn't they opt to do that with SLS?
I mean, I think it's, I think it, part of the reason is, looking at just, you want to minimize the amount of time. You see this with, with other service providers, and that SpaceX is kind of flexible, but they have depending on which pad. So pad 39A, they have a fixed service tower there, but it's probably used mostly just for crew access. But I don't believe that I don't know how much of a fixed service tower that they have at Pad 40, for instance, or at Vandenberg. And so the thing about having a large tower that's out at the pad all the time is you have to keep service and maintenance on it, and it's out in that salt spray 365 days of the year, and there isn't that much of a reason to do the checkout and maintenance of a rocket outside. And so they were really hoping with this vehicle, and I know we have a launch control update coming here, but the idea is for this, they wanted this vehicle, they wanted to test and check it out in the VAB, roll it out and launch it. And so it's taking them a long time for this one, but eventually they would like to be getting to a point where they're basically only out at the pad for about a week. And so basically they're just launch controls confirming that they aren't going to make the opening of the window, because we passed that point now by a couple of minutes, and so they are obviously going to stay. They're going to keep the clock holding at T-minus 10 minutes, and they're still estimating how long it's going to take.
Todavía
Upper stage
no se
being in
cancela,
topping means that they're very
todavía
close to
hay
getting into
esperanza. En
replenish,
unos
and
minutos,
then it's a question of how long they
ojalá
need to
que ya
stay and
esté
replenish.
arreglado, al
And then
menos
again,
eso es lo que
they're
piensan ellos.
testing that range system that transmits the commands to the flight termination system. And so it's just a question of how long is it going to take to finish, get the ICPS ready, and how long it takes to finish and get the range computers ready. So we're waiting to hear. I guess we're still waiting to hear when they say they're extending the hold. That means that they don't know what the new T0 time is yet. So we're still waiting to see how long it's going to take.
Ahorita ya solo
But just
toca
again to remind everybody,
esperar.
we have 2 hours. So the launch window runs from 1:04 a.m. Eastern to 3:04 a.m. Eastern. So we
que
still
dura
have.
2 horas la
We haven't reached
ventana.
the T0 time yet, but
Ok,
they would have to
entonces,
pick
ni modo, me veo en la obligación de seguir
up the
aquí.
clock 10 minutes before that. But we still have, 1 hour and 57 minutes of window to work with here, and so they
Ok,
can launch
tenemos 1
anytime
hora
all
con
the way up
50
to
minutos de
3:04
ventana
a.m.
de
Eastern, which
lanzamiento.
is
Si no se
8:04
resuelve en
a.m.
ese tiempo,
UTC.
ahora sí, se cancela.
Now, quick question, Philip. When they go ahead and start courting a new T0, how does it? Do they just do they command a release of the hold, or do they select a T0 time, and then the hold gets released accordingly for, in this case, 10 minutes beforehand?
Good question. I think the way that this system works, that they can put in a resume time for the ground launch sequencer, which is going to be controlling most of the final 10 minutes of the count, because what happens is down at 33 seconds when they do that handoff, if when they get to that point, the ground launch sequencer will then give that T0 time to the rocket, to the SLS flight computers, and so it doesn't do that until the handoff. So you could pick up at 10 minutes, for instance, and count down part of the way, stop, hold for a few minutes, and then continue and resume. So they have a little bit of flexibility there. And so, again, if we get close to the end of the window, which hopefully we don't, these issues, at least at this point, don't sound like it's going to take the entire 2 hours of the window. But if they got into a time crunch, they could pick up the clock relatively quickly. I think the issue, and they used to do this in shuttle, would be if they were getting into a time crunch, those poles that we talked about, they would basically get those essentially almost all the way out of the way. They'd basically pull the entire launch team, and if there were, if we were talking about again like the upper stage and range, they might just leave those two open, make sure everybody else was go, and then as soon as those two positions reported they were go, they just pick the clock up. I don't think they're going to do that in this case, but they could pick things up and go in a hurry if they needed to. So, but this is going to be kind of a seat of the pants, do this relatively quickly. So I'm kind of hoping that we'll get the launch team audio here, relatively soon. I think I'm probably being too optimistic about that, but I think that's kind of, they'll play it based on how much time they have left in the window. With 2 hours, they can go at a little bit more of a relaxed pace. I think one of the things that happens if we get an hour into the window, 45 minutes into the window, is that they're really going to lose the ability to even to recycle. If they were to have an issue, we were talking about you can go down to a certain time inside of 10 minutes. If they have an issue inside of 10 minutes and really inside of 6 minutes, they're just not going to have enough time, depending on how far we go with these problems. They're not going to have enough time to recycle tonight. So now that doesn't mean that they're going to be forced to recycle. So it's just a question of, I'm sure they would take it if they got down to the end of the window and they only had one shot tonight. I'm sure they take it. So I don't think they're going to necessarily worry about whether there's a potential for a recycle. It's just a question of we're still just waiting to hear when they're estimating the new T0 time, and we'll worry about the rest of it. But I also do think what they have left to do in terms of polls and things like that before they pick up the clock, they're probably not going to waste a whole lot of time on that. They're going to try and do that as quickly as they can.
Yeah, the other factor to put into all of this, and this would have been some information that the team would have actually received yesterday, I believe, is launch cutouts. They have times throughout this 2-hour window where
that's a good point.
There are collision on launch assessments, or COLA window, where basically the launch trajectory would take some parts of the spacecraft too close to vehicles that are already on orbit. Most of those cutouts last, like a second or two, because things moving at orbital velocity get out of the way pretty quickly. For things that are larger or higher risk, such as the International Space Station, sometimes a COLA window can last a minute or two. They're pretty small cutouts, and there's only a handful of them throughout the window. So when they're looking at new T0, they will not only evaluate the readiness of the vehicle and the teams to pick up the countdown, but they'll also see, okay, if we're going to get ready to be resuming here, when we reach T0, are we in a COLA cutout? And obviously, if they are, they'll just push it till the after that cutout window. So they'll check those as well.
Right, and I believe actually that they have the capability in the software to load all of those COLAs into the software. We were told, I think there were something on the order of about 56 of them, and like you said, they range from a couple seconds to maybe a minute in duration. But they can load those into the ground launch sequencer such that if they wanted to pick up the clock, they could basically put that command in, and then the software would figure out when's the next possible time I could pick up. So, if you were to have some COLAs kind of stacked up in a short period of time, like within a 10-minute space of time, then you might, they will obviously, they will work with that. They already know where those are, and they'll look at those before they were to consider picking up the clock. So if there were a period within this 2 hours where you had a sort of a knot or a bunch of these cutouts, they would probably just look to push to the other side of that. So, but that is a really good point. And so yeah, they have some of that already sort of prepared. And then some of it they'll just look at. They're probably looking at that right now, and they already know, okay, if we get to this point in the window, then we'll just we'll just hold to the other side of that. So, but we're probably only talking about a few minutes, and it might not even be a consideration yet.
Definitely. Well, the farther we get into the night, the closer we get to the launch of this thing. And as we've been doing throughout this entire stream, we have a whole team here that's helping us, swapping in and out and helping with comms. So we have a familiar voice joining us here. You probably heard them earlier on stream, here and there throughout the stream. Chris Gebhardt, Assistant Managing Editor for NASA Spaceflight. Chris, how are you doing? I know you've got to be like just shaking.
Well, we did my baseline heart rate a few hours ago. It was 65 beats per minute, and when I just checked it, it was 113. So my body is transitioning for terminal count. I can tell you that. And Jack is at 115. Oh, we're heart rate buddies. Nice. But yeah. So I know I know they're testing the connectivity of the rocket with the range right now after the reset. And we're going to be aiming for a new T0 here within the window. But I mean, I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm feeling all of the real thing I really didn't expect. I didn't expect it to feel exactly like shuttle when it was in its T-9-minute hold, and it feels exactly like that. The butterflies, the not knowing what to do, the legs shaking as you're getting close to this. It is just you're just getting ready if you know what's coming for that very, very visceral experience once the RS-25s and the solid rockets ignite. And I am definitely, my excitement is definitely arcing, and I'm sure you can hear it in my voice.
I can't wait
certainly
for.
can, and I can feel it sitting next to you. I do get just a quick word also from our live stream production team that they have had their final debrief on the launch sequence for today's broadcast. So I'm going to leave you on the capable hands of not just Chris Gebhardt, but also Hagen Warren and Philip Sloss. They are our liftoff commentary crew for the launch of Artemis I. Hoping to get a new T0 here shortly, and we'll be watching from here at the press site. Stay tuned.
Yes, thank you so much, Thomas. Of course, that's Thomas. Berghart, news director here at NASA Spaceflight. He's out in the field at the press.
Ok, todavía siguen sin cancelar el
site near Launch Complex 39B.
El vuelo, pero
no, one thing that I'm sure we stressed on the stream, and that I just want to say too is, you know, like the valve that was sort of giving them problems a little bit earlier, that they had to send the red team out to go remove and replace. You know, hey, if that's all we got, and that was the biggest issue from the actual ground systems at Pad B, that's incredible. Range issues happen. You know, it is weird that you could talk about an Ethernet distribution box being the issue that could delay you, but the range has had issues before. The final flight of the shuttle Discovery, STS-133, had a massive range issue that resulted in them launching with 1 second remaining in the launch window. So range issues do happen. They are rare, but they happen. So, you know, the fact that they fueled the core stage with no major reported issues is wonderful. The fact that they got the tank back into its propellant, it's really working good so far. I agree.
Yes. All right, we have a few questions here that I've been pulling from chat. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, if you do want to ask us a question, especially as we get closer to the end of the count here, tag us at NASA Spaceflight in chat and we can read it. We have here's a good question here. We're in a current hold right now. We're holding at T-minus 10 minutes. Is this a bad thing, Chris, or is this a good thing?
It is good. So SLS does have 2 built-in holds into its countdown. The first is at T-minus 6 hours, 40 minutes and lasts for about 3.5 hours. So we passed that earlier today, and that was added time because of the new fueling processes that they were using. And then the second built-in hold is planned at the T-minus 10-minute mark. Nominally, if everything's going well and you're going to aim for the opening of the launch window, this hold at the T-minus 10-minute mark would be for about 30 minutes, but it is capable of being extended for the duration of the window. So no problem sitting here at T-minus 10 minutes and holding. And in fact, if we were to pick up the countdown and there was an issue that popped up that they needed to stop for, and they stop before and they hold at T-minus 6 minutes, which is right before the core stage pressurizes for flight, they can actually hold there at T-minus 6 minutes for the duration of the window as well. It's after you cross the T-minus 6 minute mark that you have limited to no hold options based on how SLS is changing its configuration for liftoff.
Yeah, so definitely, you know, it's it's sort of like, you know, the most complex part of the count is coming up. I feel like terminal count is crunch time. They're preparing the rocket for launch. Yeah.
And it is, and this is why once you pass the T-minus 10-minute mark, there's very few stable hold points with SLS. And when we say stable, it's exactly what you said, because the vehicle is changing itself. It's pressurizing its tanks. It's making sure that it is ready to launch. And the more you keep sequencing that, the tighter the constraints become, because at a certain point, you close the liquid hydrogen fill and drain valves, and all you've got left is what's in that tank. You do the same for the liquid oxygen. And at that point, you have thermal constraints that you have to meet, not in the tanks, in the box feed lines, and in the engines themselves. So it is incredibly complicated, and that is why after 3.5 minutes, you can only cut off and recycle back to T-minus 10, and if you have enough time, potentially try again. And then after 33 seconds, the vehicle literally switches to flight mode. And the only way, if you have a problem after that point and need to stop, to get the computers and SLS out of flight mode is to drain the tanks. So that's why anything after 33 seconds, any issue is an automatic scrub for the day, because they have to detank to get everything reconfigured.
Uf, qué buen internet. Se cortó la transmisión.
It's basically a two-piece payload fairing. Orion is completely encapsulated here, and so the issue is they use that same caulk, which is called room temperature vulcanizer in space speak, and there's some of that caulk has come off of those. They use that to seal the gaps in between. There's I believe there are 3 of those around the service module, and there's a camera. There's a sensor that came loose, and so there's a little bit of a debris issue, and apparently there's another issue with the sensor. So I guess they're still looking at that. We'll see if Alex or Adrian has anything to add about that. If they're listening to the commentary, but I'm not sure. It didn't sound like it. Have they cleared it yet, Chris?
Actually, stand by. Adrian is typing. Yes. So Adrian says that according to the update, they did an analysis on the trajectory again on those parts. There is no ongoing concern about that. Is the update that we were fed here. So sounds like something they're going to discuss, and discuss the rationale just to make sure they've got it, but that the previous trajectory analysis seems to support that we're okay from that standpoint.
Right. Well, and so they've got some extra time to talk about that while they're waiting for these other 2 things to get completely ready to go.
Exactly right, Philip. Sometimes your issues collaborate to make it easier. for you.
Right.
And the number 13 were all I had. Who the people around me were, what they wanted, or what they were trying to do. I had no idea.
Chale, no de nuevo.
Even though that seems like a long time, 30 minutes, they got to get quite a bit of tasks done in that period of time.
Yes. So,
and 20 minutes can evaporate quickly when you're trying to do all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And as they were saying, that's an estimate, and I think they. I don't know if that was an exact quote from Launch Control, but it's being underlined that that's a no earlier than T0 time.
And of sensors on board.
Well, the Moonikins.
Yes, there you go. I was blanking on what the name was. The Moonikins. So we have a question here saying, can you talk about the technology involved in the test dummies, or the Moonikins, to monitor the effects of launch? How many Gs will they experience? How will they deal with radiation? Is that all things that they're going to be studying with these?
Yeah, actually, question asked and question answered within the question there. That's a really great question, and you hit the nail on the head. The Moonikins, the mannequins, crash test dummies, whatever you want to call them, they have accelerometers on them to measure G-forces, not just in the upward velocity, but also laterally side to side as the vehicle is going to encounter those things that it has to account for as it ascends through the dense lower atmosphere. And then, of course, once you shoot Orion past the Van Allen radiation belts, they've got to go through that radiation environment, and then they've got to get to the part of space that isn't as protected as we are here on the ground because of Earth's magnetosphere. So those are the two main things that the Moonikins are in there for. The other cool thing, though, from a future crew perspective, is the Callisto experiment that is on board the Orion, and this is an interface between Alexa and WebEx and an off-the-shelf iPad to study how those creature comforts that we have at home can be translated to Orion so that crew members can have video conferencing just like we have gotten used to in the last few years, and they can have that same interaction. Alexa, tell me where I am. Alexa, how fast is Orion going? Alexa, what was the score of the Phillies game last night? That's for you, Thomas. And everything. But yeah, so there are, in addition to the Moonikins, there are some other things that are on board and other experiments that they will be actively doing to help understand how crews will actually be able to utilize the Orion.
Yes, and
crew is on board. This is not an oversight. This is not a risk that NASA and ESA are taking. In fact, most uncrewed test flights of crew vehicles do not fly with fully functioning environmental control and life support systems because we operate that 24/7, 365 or 366, depending on the year, on board the International Space Station. We know those systems inside and out. We don't need to put them on to actually test them. And just because I know people are going to say it, Starliner and Dragon did not fly with fully operational life support systems when they took their uncrewed flight tests either. So it's not needed, and NASA did not mandate it for the commercial partners, and they do not mandate it for themselves either.
There you go. And I just want to, and we have a question about this now that we have it on screen right here. On your right screen right there, you see those gray circles on that interstage between the ICPS and the core stage. We have a question here asking, what exactly are those? You know, what purpose do they serve for the vehicle?
Oh, the black and white checkerboard markings?
Not quite. Look on that interstage there. There's these 4 gray circles you can see on that.
There's a bunch of. They're basically their flight. There are a bunch of access doors in the vehicle, and specifically on the launch vehicle stage adapter, and those are basically flight doors with a special kind of thermal protection. It's a little different than just based on looking at different color. It's a different type of thermal protection on it. But those are just access doors that have flight door covers on them for the flight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, there you go. Here we go. Okay, so these solid rocket boosters, we see these massive twins 5 segment solid rocket boosters there. How long are we expecting those to burn whenever they are ignited at T0?
Mm-hmm. Great question. Roughly 2 minutes and 5 seconds. And I say roughly because their exact burn time is dependent on the ambient temperature, how fast they actually burn, and when the chamber pressures in both of them go under 50 psi, that is what starts to trigger the systems to say, okay, their thrust is tailing off and they're ready for separation. In the shuttle era, they separated anywhere from 2 minutes 1 second to 2 minutes 12 seconds, and it was really just dependent on their day of performance. So that's sort of the range that we're expecting, but they will burn for the exact same rough amount of time as the shuttle solids, because even though there's an added 5th segment, when you add a segment to a solid rocket booster, it increases the overall thrust of the booster, but the burn time is actually a function of the diameter of the boosters and how much propellant from a diameter perspective is in there. So simply adding a segment does not actually increase the burn time; it just increases the thrust. And how much propellant from
you here? I feel like you're fairly familiar with geography. We have a question here asking, will I be able to see the launch from Quebec up in Canada?
I wish our Canadian friends would be able to see this, but unfortunately, no. So because we have already pushed into the window, that visual map that NASA put out earlier today is no longer accurate, because SLS would have launched on the most northerly trajectory possible, a 77-ish degree compass heading where 0 is true north and 90 degrees is due east. She would have launched at about a 77-degree inclination, which would have taken her slightly up the eastern seaboards to the Carolinas, and maybe southern parts of Virginia might have been able to see it. But as we march through the countdown, that compass heading gets closer and closer to due east. So Canada really has no shot of seeing this. The eastern, like New England and the mid-Atlantic states, really don't have a chance of seeing this. If you are in Georgia, southern portions and coastal areas of the Carolinas, all of Florida, if it is clear, and the Bahamas, if you are watching from the Bahamas, you will see this when it lifts off. And if you are in Florida, just aim yourself in the general direction of the Kennedy Space Center and look for the giant sun rising at 2 o'clock in the morning, basically.
So cool. And actually, since we're on the topic of, asking, places around the world, I want to do a quick engagement thing here with the chat. If you are currently listening to me and my voice and Chris G and Philip's voice, tell us where you're from. tell us in chat where you're from, and if you're in one of those areas that Chris just mentioned that's going to be able to see SLS lighting up the sky as it rockets into orbit, then let us know that as well. Also, one more thing, if you are watching, be sure to like the stream. That's going to push our stream and our work out to more people. And if you like what we're doing here, then just be sure to subscribe. We have a ton of spaceflight related content, not just related to SLS. We have a whole slew of daily videos dedicated to Starship progress down in Boca Chica, and in Florida we have KSC flyovers, weekly news shows. We have everything you could need for your ease your spaceflight and science, space science needs. So definitely be sure to do that.
Yeah, and too, like, like telling us where you're watching from is a way that YouTube goes, hey, wait, look at all this chat. Like, people are really engaged with this. We should push this to more people so more people can learn about the good orange rocket that's about to do its thing and take us back to the moon. And hitting the like button is the same. So if you're looking for other ways to support us, hitting that like button and telling us where you are located around the world in chat is a great way, because it tells that YouTube algorithm, hey, people should be watching this. People should be learning about this rocket and what we are about to do. So if you feel like helping us out, that would really be a great way to show some support as well. And who doesn't want to learn more about SLS and Orion and big solid rocket boosters? Come on.
Indeed, yes. Oh, I'm stealing your. I'm stealing your word there,
Very
Chris.
good. A hat tip to yes.
I've been spending too much time with you. Here we go. We have a question about. I know earlier we were talking during the fuel up, especially talking about replenish during fuel up. What exactly does that mean by hydrogen replenish?
Yes.
What does that word mean in the context of fueling operations in SLS?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, replenish is basically the big fancy is essentially the short fancy word for, okay, we've put all of the hydrogen and all of the oxygen that the tanks can hold in them, but they are cryogenic and they will boil off as their internal temperatures rise. Their boiling point is like -200 ish and -420 degrees Fahrenheit for oxygen and hydrogen, respectively there. And as they reach their boiling point, that liquid turns into a gas that has to be vented out of the tanks safely, and then replenish is just how much boils off is the exact same amount you keep putting in. So it's basically like when you're at the gas pump and you just keep doing that thing, like after the gas pump automatically cuts off and you just keep putting a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. It's essentially that. They're just making sure that the tank stays at 100% capacity, and they're just doing that by saying this is how much it boils off per minute, so this is how much more we put in per minute.
There you go. Okay, Chris, I'm just going to keep on throwing these questions at you here, especially since this one is semi-shuttle
Go for it.
related.
Oh, perfect.
So we know during the shuttle program, of course, the space shuttle use twin solid rocket boosters like SLS does here. Essentially, I think we can just say that the entire core stage of everything below the ICPS and the adapter on SLS is sort of like the space shuttle external tank and solid rocket boosters.
No.
Oh.
It's a little bit more than that.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, you can make that claim somewhat for the solid rocket boosters and the RS-25s, although they have been modified from their shuttle era designs to service SLS. The core stage absolutely cannot be thought of as the external tank. It is not just the external tank. And so basically, you could make the argument that the RS-25s, the solid rocket boosters, and the RL-10 engine with the ICPS are all known quantities. Everything else needs to really be thought of as absolutely brand new. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to hit this question real quick. It looks like we have an update coming in. Here, let's hit that update real quick. It says Adrian and Alex in the back channel are telling us that launch control is saying just a few minutes left of work to do with those issues that they're working. So
then the poll.
Yep.
Right. There's another one too, just to throw it in there. So we were talking about a NASA test director poll, and then the final poll being the launch director, but there will also be a poll of mission management team in front of those two. But the big one is the launch director, and Charlie Blackwell Thompson is going to be the person that gives the go to launch this vehicle. But we're getting pretty close now, it sounds like.
Yeah, it really does.
And you can see her there in the middle of the picture now, on the screen there. So, that the gentleman to the right of her is Jeremy Graber, who's the assistant launch director. You can see their name tag, well, not name tags, but their title tags on the desk there behind their monitors. So, but they're both working. They're both listening to the polls, probably listen to the integration console that they basically focus on all the issues that they're dealing with, and also listening to the NASA test director, who's kind of orchestrating the launch count. And so hopefully we're a handful of minutes away from hearing the launch team poll for launch.
Oh man.
Which will be incredibly exciting to just start hearing the goes and the discussions that ensue from that.
Right. Let me throw something in here. Hopefully I can get this in too quickly. You guys were talking about replenish before. Another advantage of doing that is it also conditions the temperature of the cryogenics in the tanks. You get a little bit higher density. You're putting cold liquid hydrogen or liquid oxygen in the bottom of the tanks, and you're getting rid of warm liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen that's venting off and boiling off on the top, and that actually increases the density of the fluid, since this is a rocket that uses essentially sort of boiling point cryogenics. So it also serves to condition the propellant to a good temperature for ignition and firing. And that's one of the things we were talking about, where we were talking about, well, how long do they need to be in stable replenish for? Because it helps to temperature condition the propellant.
And about a minute away now from, all right, at least a minute away from the anticipated go, no go poll here for SLS, the ICPS has also undergone its cycling of the LH2 valves as planned, and is now into the planned cycling of the liquid oxygen valves as well.
Ooh, it's
And yeah, other than that, we're going to take a pause on the questions here for the poll coming up here for this, because this is a very critical moment for the team as they prepare to step into, as they prepare to see if they are ready to step into terminal count.
Okay, so, but there's still, okay, but we still don't have a T0, so, as I said, that
now they reduce it down to 1. Just heard from NASA Test Director Carlos Monge. I'm sorry, Jeff Spaulding. Jeff Spaulding's on. They swapped out. There are currently no constraints to launch. Great news. Again, no constraints to launch. And they're getting ready to pick up with a poll to determine readiness for launch.
Ok, parece que hay buenas noticias. Ya van a dar el nuevo T0, así que... Perdón.
Okay, NASA Test Director Jeff Spaulding getting ready to conduct the readiness poll, so we are getting close. We're going to pull up the audio now
Ok, sí, sí va a haber lanzamiento, sí va a haber lanzamiento.
so that you can listen in.
LPs go. And rockets go.
Sí,
All right,
sí
copy
hay,
all.
sí hay.
And launch director NTD, our launch team is ready to proceed at this time.
I copy all NTD. At this time, I will proceed with my poll. And
Ok,
attention on 232, this is the launch director performing the final poll for launch. Verify no constraints and go for launch. EGS, Program Chief Engineer.
ok. Incluso el clima está ayudando.
EGS, SLS, and Orion Program Chief Engineers have no constraints and are go for launch.
Copy, Greg. Thank you. EGS, Chief Safety Officer.
The EGS CSO
Vámonos.
verifies the SLS, Orion, and EGS CSOs have no constraints and are go for launch.
Copy, John. Thank you. Range weather.
Weather has no constraints and weather is go for launch.
Copy, LWO. And mission manager. And mission manager, launch director.
Launch director, mission manager on 232. The mission management team has been polled. You have a go to proceed with terminal count and launch of Artemis I.
I copy all. Thank you. And NTD, launch director.
Go ahead, launch director.
Yes, sir. On behalf of all the men and women across our great nation who have worked to bring this hardware together to make this day possible, and for the Artemis generation, this is for you. At this time, I give you a go to resume count and launch Artemis I.
Copy, launch director, and thank you. All right, we do have a couple of steps to configure, and then we will be ready to resume the clock. CVSE, NTD.
CVSC here.
Initiate recording of Orion cameras at this time.
In work.
Ok, parece que...
NTD.
RSR here.
Ok, aquí está el video trazadísimo. Vámonos acá al
Now,
NASA.
we are going to resume the clock.
Aquí está
GLS, you
adelantado.
can resume the clock on
Yeah.
your mark.
GLS copies. Countdown clock will resume on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. GLS mainline has been initiated.
T-minus 10 minutes and
Ok.
counting.
Empieza de nuevo la cuenta regresiva. Así que aquí estamos de nuevo.
7:44 is the new liftoff time.
Affirm.
Okay.
I think I heard the T0 was 06:47:44. Did you guys hear that? That's based on the pickup time. So something like that.
Something like that, yes.
That would be in
Yeah.
UTC, obviously.
But folks, just to provide a brief update-
1:47:44 a.m. EST, yes.
There you go. Artemis 1 has entered terminal count. We are at less than T-minus 10 minutes away, T-minus 9 minutes now till the launch of Artemis 1. Do we want to walk through real quick what's going to be happening in these next 9 or so minutes?
Yeah, I'm actually going to turn that over to Philip. I am getting way too emotional to speak.
Well, I think we're
going
gonna
to go get ready to actually
right.
for the liftoff. So I'm going to hand it off to Philip, and good luck, everyone.
All right, and I'm
Chris.
not gonna. We definitely we only have a few minutes here, but basically, there are not too many milestones or major milestones until T-minus 6 minutes. But at 6 minutes, they'll start pressurizing the tanks
Ok,
in the
están
core
presurizando
stage,
los tanques
and
para poder
then
realizar
they
el
will at 4
lanzamiento.
minutes the core stage auxiliary power units will start. Then they will basically they'll start they'll be pressurizing the core stage tanks. They'll go into this final hydrogen engine bleed about 4 minutes 40 seconds, and basically when we get down to T-minus 6 minutes, you'll start to hear a lot more of these milestones called out. And I think really we just want to we're probably I was planning on just listening to the ground launch sequencer milestones and hopefully it'll be fairly self-explanatory. If there are any issues, we'll just listen, and we'll try and fill in as we can. But I think at this point, at least my inclination is to just listen to the. We should be hearing mostly just the ground launch sequencer engineer calling out the milestones, and we should probably hear the next one here at the T-minus 6 minute mark. And so I don't know if we have any, if we don't have anything here, but in terms of at the very end, the pre-lift off water will be released about somewhere around 16 seconds before.
Introducing SpeechAlone.
No,
the most natural sounding text-to-speech software.
No puede ser. Ok, ya estamos de regreso.
And so we're getting pretty close here to the 6 minute mark in the countdown.
I see.
And Philip, just to confirm, I mean, this is 6 minutes, 6
Estamos a
minutes.
6
There's not like
minutos,
another
6
hour of
minutitos,
built-in
6
holds or anything,
minutitos
correct?
para el lanzamiento.
That's correct. There are no planned holds from here on down.
All right, we're gonna keep on listening in. We're listening to the launch field as well.
Go for stage tank pressurization.
Los presurizadores.
There we go. So that's the 6 minutes, and so that's what we're doing. Let me just look here. So the next milestone that we should hear would be at the T-minus 5 minute point, and that'll be go for FTS arm, so the flight termination system that will be armed for flight at 5 minutes. And so if I'll try and duck in some of these when we have a little space, but as we get closer to liftoff, we're obviously the pace of events are gonna pick up.
Okay.
GLS is go for FTS arm.
Ok, ya están preparando los brazos que se van a soltar.
Okay, the next milestone will be at 4 minutes 40 seconds here quickly. That'll be go for, I don't know if he's going to say LH2, but go for high flow bleed.
GLS is go for LH2 high flow bleed check.
All right, there we go. And the next milestone will be at 4 minutes, which will be go for APU start on the core stage.
4 minutos para el lanzamiento.
As long as that's all we're hearing, things are going well.
Tres minutos para el lanzamiento, gente, sí se pudo.
And you can hear the APUs. A little bit of chugging from the APUs. I don't know if we'll be able to see the exhaust that's way down at the bottom of the stage. If we have a shot of the engines, we might be able to show a little bit of that. Let me see if I can. I just need to bring up the big picture here. You see those jets coming out from in between the engines. It's cold gas APU exhaust, and those are basically running on a spin start helium system right now. We should be coming up to purge sequence 4. That's the next GLS milestone.
GLS is go for purge sequence 4.
Ok. Ya 2 minutos para el lanzamiento.
And so the next milestone will be at 2 minutes 30 seconds. They will start to do the final thrust vector control gimbal check of the core stage engines, and you might even be able to hear the APU exhaust kind of spool up and spool down as the engines are moved around here. So we should see that on this camera relatively easily. And there they go.
2 minutos y medio para el lanzamiento. Yo dije, ya se trabó. No se trabó. Que no se trabe. Vamos, vamos.
GLS is go for upper stage to internal power.
1 minuto para
There we go.
lanzamiento. Bueno,
And so the core stage and the
Seguimos
upper
minutos
stage
igual.
tanks
1
are being
minuto con
pressurized for
52
flight
segundos.
at this point. The next milestone is at
Ahorita estamos
1 minute
viendo
30
los
seconds.
motores del cohete
Is
principal.
go for core stage to internal power, and that's a big milestone. At that, if we go past that point, we won't be able to. We would have to recycle if they have an issue.
GLS is go for core stage to internal power.
Ok,
Everything's still go though, so
ya están encendiendo los motores. Bueno, calentando por así decirlo los motores. Ya están ahí las...
I'm
Ok,
not
no
sure if
solo
we're
están
going to
enviando
hear
presión.
just a call out at 1 minute or not. We may just hear the GLS. If in that case, well, let's wait here.
1 minute.
Ok,
There we
estamos
go.
a 1 minuto de
And so the
lanzamiento.
next milestone is the final handoff. It's go for ALS, which stands for Autonomous Launch Sequence, and that's when the ground launch sequencer will hand off to the SLS flight computers. That'll be at 33 seconds. And once that happens, I will stop talking.
GLS is go for ALS.
30 segundos para el lanzamiento.
20,
20,
15,
15,
10.
10,
GLS is go for core
9,
stage engine start.
8, 7, 6, 5. ¡No! No puede ser. Justo se traba.
Stage engine start.
Bueno, 7, 6, 5. No, no me la contés. No me la contés. Ok, ya está. Regresemos un poco porque si no, no vemos de nada. Ok, 2, 1, 0 y se fue.
Engines on the core stage and 2 solid rocket boosters now propelling the vehicle at 128 miles per hour. Hearing good control on the roll from teams in Mission Control Houston. All good calls so far. Now 30 seconds into the flight of Artemis I. First milestone will be for the vehicle to pass through max Q at about 1 minute and 9 seconds into launch. This is the greatest period of atmospheric force on the rocket.
Al minuto 25 estará pasando por el
SLS now traveling 607 miles per hour. You're looking at 8.8 million pounds of maximum thrust. Quiet here in the loops in Mission Control. 4 core stage engines are throttling down ahead of passing through max Q.
Ok, está pasando por el max Q. Bueno, unos segunditos más de lo que dijeron, pero ni modo. ¿Qué más se puede hacer?
Now 1 minute, 21 seconds into the flight, traveling at 1,420 miles per hour.
Ok, ya está.
The 4 core stage engines are back at maximum thrust. The next major milestone will be for the solid rocket boosters to cut off and jettison at about 2 minutes and 11 seconds into the flight, so about 30 seconds from now. Again, quiet here in Mission Control Houston as teams continue monitoring the flight of Artemis I. We're now 16 miles downrange from the launch pad at Kennedy Space Center, traveling over 2,800 miles per hour. Standing by for solid rocket booster jettison and shortly thereafter.
Ok, ya se deberían estar separando los cohetes de combustible sólido y ahí lo tenemos.
Confirmation that the solid rocket boosters have separated these 177-foot boosters.
Okay, se separaron de forma
now the core stage
exitosa.
continues to power the flight of Orion, all 4 RS-25 engines firing, traveling over 3,400 miles per hour, 46 miles downrange. 2 minutes and 36 seconds into the flight. Hearing nominal calls here in Mission Control Houston. We've still got 4 good engines on the core stage. Next up, we'll be looking for the service module fairing to separate. This is 3 15 by 15 foot fairing panels, providing structural support, protecting the service module. Those will separate at about 3 minutes and 11 seconds into flight, and very shortly thereafter will be followed by the launch abort system separation.
Okay, entonces ya mismo.
Just over 3 minutes into the flight of Artemis I, now traveling over 4,060 miles per hour, 83 miles downrange. We just had confirmation that the service module fairing has separated. And that the launch abort system pyros have fired, separating those from Orion as well. For future crew members, we just heard the call for 3 engine press, meaning if SLS were to lose an engine at this point in the mission, we could still achieve a nominal mission. We would just have an extended main engine cutoff time. However, we still have 4 good engines, all at maximum thrust right now, powering the first flight of Artemis at 5,200 miles per hour, 148 miles downrange.
Ok, en estos momentos los motores están a su máxima potencia. Ya mismo se produce el mico en donde ya se separan. Bueno, se apagan los motores y la primera etapa se separa de.
We're 4 minutes and 16 seconds into the flight of Artemis I. So far, we've had a clean ascent. We saw those solid rocket boosters jettison about 2 minutes and 11 seconds after liftoff. Shortly after, we had the service module panels fairings separate, as well as the launch abort system. The launch abort system was inert for this flight, except to perform this separation. Those 4 core stages will continue to fire and power the flight of Artemis I, now traveling over 6,800 miles per hour, 229 miles downrange. Booster flight controller reports that the engines are looking good.
Okay, todo va perfecto, perfecto, perfecto.
Our core stage main engine cutoff time is about 8 minutes and 3 seconds. We are now 5 minutes and 11 seconds into the flight, 7,656 miles per hour. Again, 4 good core stage engines, those 4 RS-25 engines. The last time those core stage engines flew, they were taking space shuttles to orbit, and now with upgraded capabilities, they're launching the future of human spaceflight. 5 minutes and 42 seconds into the mission, we are now about a minute and a half now until that core stage main engine cutoff time. Our 4 core stage engines continue to fire maximum thrust. Coming up on 7 minutes since launch today, now traveling over 12,800 miles per hour, 563 miles downrange. Again, still quiet here in Mission Control Houston.
Todo va bien.
As we prepare for main engine cutoff, the 4 RS-25 engines are beginning to throttle down.
Ok, ya van a apagar los motores principales para la separación de etapas.
30 seconds now until core stage main engine cutoff. All 4 engines continue to throttle down.
Ok, ya empiezan a cortar.
Now 7 minutes 45 seconds into the flight, traveling over 16,000 miles per hour.
Está a 6,000 kilómetros
Continuing
por
to
hora
hear good
ahorita.
calls here
Bueno,
in
no
Mission Control
kilómetros, millas
Houston.
por hora.
We're standing by
Mire
for core
conjunto.
stage
Bueno.
main engine cutoff.
Perdón. Ok, entonces en estos momentos ya se cortó, bueno, ya paró, se apagaron los motores
And we have
principales.
confirmation of core stage main engine cutoff. Orion is now in Earth's orbit. The flight dynamics officer
en la
reports
órbita
that
de
we
la
have a
Tierra en estos
nominal main
momentos.
engine cutoff. And
Ya
we
se
just heard the
separó.
call for core stage separation. That means Orion and the interim cryogenic propulsion stage are now flying free from the core stage of the Space Launch System. The next milestone will be solar array deploy approximately 18 minutes after liftoff. But before Orion stretches its wings, let's check back in with our friends at Kennedy Space Center and hear all about what it was like to hear the rocket roar off the launch pad. Megan and Kayla, I've got to hear all about it.
Well, I don't think we're Megan and Kayla here, but
no
they do
hubieran
have friends at
bajado
Kennedy
el
Space
volumen
Center.
de
Let's
los
see if we can't get
micrófonos
Hayden
en
and
la
Philip
plataforma de
back into
lanzamiento, capaz
commentary.
que sí se escuchaba
That was
más
Is
nuts.
everybody
en
still
la
here?
transmisión esa.
I am.
Dicen que sí
Uh,
estuvo
That
medio
was nuts.
fuerte.
Admittedly a mess, but think.
Y
So yeah,
podemos ahí
folks.
ver a la luna.
Orion is on its way to the moon. Artemis I is
Ya está en
on its way
camino.
to the moon. As
Ya
you saw
está
there, SLS,
en,
Space Launch System,
cambiando su órbita para entrar a
beautifully and successfully lifted off of Launch Complex 39B at the Kennedy
transferencia
Space
de
Center in
órbita.
Florida. It appeared to be a clean ascent. SRB burnout and separation was beautiful. It looked very clean. And as we saw there, all indications show that separation of the core stage from the interim cryogenic propulsion stage were good. So
Let's see if we can't check in, Hagen, with the folks out in the field.
Yeah.
I know we heard
I'm
from
ready
Jack
to hear Chris
there
G.
briefly. I think Chris G is going to be coming back in. I want to
Chris G
hear.
is here. He's getting on comms. He is. I think he's composing himself. That was.
Yeah.
The sound. The sound was almost scary. For a moment there. It went. We're on our way to the moon. Congratulations to NASA. I'm working on a video right now. The emotions at the press site were utterly insane. I mean, people were expressing happiness and elation at launch, like I've never heard or felt at any other launch that I've ever attended or witnessed. I'm just kind of wow. What a
I think we're all
what
in
a
a state of
vehicle.
shock right now.
What a vehicle! What a launch!
Chris,
How great was that?
Chris, I want to hear from you. You've been waiting for this day for over a decade. How was it?
Everything
If you
I
can.
wanted it to be.
Gente que está
It was
esperando
everything I
una
wanted
década
it to
para
be.
poder
Oh my
ver
gosh,
despegar
when the
a este
boosters lit,
monstruo, a uno
that
de
was
los, bueno,
just.
ya
Oh my
después de
gosh,
esto
when the
ya se
boosters lit and they
posiciona
did their
oficialmente
overpressure thing on the
como
back
el
end and
cohete
just
más poderoso jamás
the
construido.
sound, the light. I mean,
Aunque
it
bueno,
was
probablemente
everything
es
I
que
remembered
sea
and more,
superado
and it
por
was
Starship.
an
Pero
incredible
bueno,
start to this
todavía
2016 mission,
no hace ni
and
siquiera su
no
vuelo
one
debut
can say that
ya como tal,
SLS
así que
doesn't work.
arriba
SLS
el SLS.
works, and SLS is the most powerful rocket we have that has ever flown. And yes, yes, orange rocket, good, yes. Oh my gosh, that's my initial reaction.
Okay. Do we have Philip back with us? I'm sure he is just as
Oh shoot!
elated.
How did I get muted? I was. If I've been muted the whole time, I apologize. But I mean, I would say to me, that. We waited a long time. It took them a while to get everything to line up, but that's why they waited this long, is because they wanted it to be a clean, boring launch. And this is only the first half of it, but you know,
bueno, dice que se
these are the
tomaron su
systems that they've
tiempo
been working
para
with for a
que
while.
el
The boosters
lanzamiento salga
and
de
the
la
core
mejor
stage
forma posible.
seem to have worked
Aunque bueno,
perfectly.
sí
And
existieron
so
unas
this
fallas,
is what they wanted. They
al
wanted
menos en
a
las
clean
computadoras, en el
launch. This is,
switch de
you know,
internet.
it's a flight test. It's only one launch,
Pero
but
bueno, son
they
dificultades que al
wanted
final
to,
se
you know, they
lograron
wanted
superar.
to sort of, they wanted to launch in the middle
Y
of their,
ya,
you know, in the sweet spot, to give it as, you know, give it the best
los
chance
humanos
of
nos
success.
fuimos para la
And
luna.
and at least, you know, we're just talking about
Bueno,
the core
recordemos
stage
que
and the
esta
boosters, but
misión
that's
no
the
es
base of the
tripulada,
SLS, and they
solo
both
va con
performed,
los maniquís
you know,
y con los
almost flawlessly.
instrumentos
It
para
certainly,
medir
we didn't hear
cómo
of
son
any
las
issues going
condiciones
uphill
dentro
at
de la
all.
cápsula Orion durante
Yeah.
todo el viaje.
And you know, the
Y
other thing I'll say, because this is
2025,
this is the emotional
humanos para la
part
luna,
for me.
y estaríamos creando nuestra
My
primera
generation
base.
has now seen a human-rated
Al menos
vehicle
eso
launch
es
to
lo
the
que
moon and launch
se
to another
tiene
planet,
previsto.
another celestial body. That is the emotional moment. Like, for so many people who remember Apollo and saw it with their own eyes, and to those of us who weren't here yet,
Okay.
this was an incredible moment to experience. I mean,
Okay,
like
está
you were
hablando
saying
de
earlier,
la
Sawyer, the
gente que
combination of
tuvo
Apollo
la
4 and Apollo
oportunidad de
8
presenciar
in
lo
a
que fueron
very
las
interesting
misiones
way for
Apolo
what they are doing here.
y
But that's the emotion
ver
of it. We've seen a
despegar
moon rocket launch, and I'm going to let Sawyer.
otro monstruo.
But I mean, we have seen a moon
Bien,
rocket
hasta.
launch.
Yeah, Chris, I think we actually
Is
have
here?
some control center audio here. Let's see if we can't listen in on the control room.
Can you guys hear me?
Pam Melroy.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, va a dar unas palabras.
Well, for once, I might be speechless. So you guys know I have talked a lot about appreciating the moment that you're in. And we have worked hard as a
Aprecio
team.
mucho
You
el
guys
momento
have
en el
worked
que
hard as a
ellos-
team for this
en el que
moment.
ellos han trabajado
This
duro para
is
poder
your
completar
moment.
este proyecto y este es su momento.
It is not by chance that you are here today. So I want you to
Que
look
no fue
around. Look
por
around at this
una
team
tribalidad,
and
por así
know that
decirlo,
you have earned it.
que no fue
You
porque
have
sí
earned
que
your place
están
in the
ahí,
room.
sino que ellos se
You've
ganaron su
earned
propio puesto en el
this
cuarto.
moment. You have earned your place in history.
Okay, que también se ganaron su puesto
You were
y
part
su
of a
historia.
first.
Son
Doesn't come
parte
along very
del
often.
primer que.
Once in a career, maybe. But we are all part of something incredibly special, the
Bueno, que son
first
parte-
launch of Artemis.
Eso, ya. Así sí, completando las frases que son parte del primer lanzamiento de Artemis,
The first step in returning our country to the moon and on to Mars.
okay. El primer paso para que
What you
Estados
have
Unidos
done
regrese a la luna
what you have done
y
today
vayan a
will
Marte, ya
inspire
que, bueno,
generations
este
to
cohete también
come.
tiene la posibilidad de viajar a
So
otros
thank
planetas
you.
del sistema solar.
Thank you for your resilience.
Gracias.
You know, I said at the
Gracias
pretest
por su
briefing,
resiliencia.
the harder the climb, the better the view. We showed the Space Coast tonight. What a beautiful view it is. So
Que tiene un corazón
congratulations.
tan grande como una montaña. Ya, que observen el hermoso paisaje que tienen de la costa.
So we got a couple of traditions here in launch control.
Que tienen tradiciones
And the
ahí.
first one is
La primera es
when you're in the position for the first time, you get a tie cutting. And so
cutting.
I
¿Qué también será eso?
have my launch director scissors. And I'm going to get my tie cut by a couple of legends that are here.
Okay, algo va
And
a
then
cortar.
anyone who wants their tie cut will be making the rounds in the firing room. You got your console chiefs if they want to do it. That's fine. If you want me to do it, you might have to wait a little while, but I'll stay all night if I have to. It'll be my pleasure to cut ties. So I'm going to take care of mine, and then I have one other presentation that I want to
Aquí
make
quiero
this
tener
evening.
Ok, va a ser una presentación esta noche. Bueno, noche no, sería madrugada.
That's Bob Seek, the old shuttle launch director.
And it's Mike Leinbach
And Mike
too, I
Leinbach.
believe.
Yeah.
They're gonna do the tie cutting.
Okay, that makes me cry again.
You're not alone right now, Chris. Oh my God.
Cortar de esos cintas. Oh, no son cintas, con corbatas.
Nice. That's awesome.
Ok, entonces cortar corbatas, a eso
This
se
is
refiere.
Charlie Blackwell Thompson, Artemis I launch director. She just got her tie cut. That is a tradition here at NASA.
Una tradición en
We just
NASA
got to hear her
que
talk to the
cortan
team. And
sus corbatas una vez que un lanzamiento es exitoso.
All right, sounds like they're going to go back into talking about things. But again, Chris and Sawyer were sort of hopping in. Philip talking about the tie cutting ceremony there. Wow.
Hablan de la ceremonia de cortar corbatas y ya. Y
Say
ahora.
it does.
Well,
it is my
Unless Bobby
very
does it.
favorite shot. Yeah, we were real quick there. It was the very favorite shot on launch day. It is the empty mobile launcher. Does not have an orange rocket anymore. Orange rocket's payload, I guess, is on its way to the moon.
Yeah.
Thanks for
we
bringing
do
that
need
shot up
to-
there. Go ahead, Philip.
I just want to remind, we just need to keep in mind, this getting as far as they've got is a big accomplishment, but we're getting pretty close here to when they were going to deploy Orion solar arrays, and so I know there's that milestone, and then we have a little bit more time before the for the perigee raise maneuver, which is about 51 minutes after liftoff. But we do want to hear. Hopefully, we'll get an update here. It looks like over on. Oh, here we go. Maybe we'll get an update here because we are waiting for solar array deploy on Orion.
Ok, de aquí ya tienen que suceder varias cosas.
Yeah,
más.
well, they look for that
encendido de
confirmation on solar
motor
array deployment, though. To reiterate what the team was able to do today,
ahí me
they
mataron.
launched the SLS rocket less than a week after a hurricane came through this area when it was out at the pad, and they cleared that vehicle and got it ready and launched it. Awesome.
Ok,
Because they didn't
todos
now the most
están
powerful rocket in
felices
existence
y
at the moment that
contentos
has flown to orbit.
de que el cohete
I guess
más
they didn't need that
poderoso
RTV that
que
peeled
ha
off the
volado
side, huh?
hasta ahora sea un éxito. Bueno, no, que no sabemos si va a ser, bueno, si es o no un éxito hasta que complete la misión. Así que conmigo hasta aquí llegamos. Que les vaya bien en la vida y en todo. Así que hasta la próxima vez. Adiós.
I don't know if that was from one of the tips of one of the other ones, or
That's live. That's
No,
live
that's
from the GoPros at the end. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's from the end
Okay.
of the solar array.
okay, and it's still extending out, but great. This is, it's going to be a little intermittent, but this is for a little bit of time. This vehicle will be in Earth orbit.
Oh my God.
So where are we here? I mean, we're let's see, we're only 20 minutes in.